Adrian N. Breitfelder, City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a regular session of the City Council to be held on Monday, December 1st, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. in the historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting such business that may properly come before the City Council.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to a regular session of the Dubuque City Council for December 1st, 2025. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during the sections of the agenda where public input is accepted. Input options during the live meeting include in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input on the item they would like to speak to. Remote attendees can log into GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you are participating via computer, indicate which item you would like to speak to in the chat function or note that you would like to speak during the appropriate section. If you are participating via phone, indicate which item you would like to speak to during the appropriate section. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/councilcontacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. This information will be reiterated during the meeting. Attendance for the session is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Farber.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Roussel.
Here.
Sprank.
Here.
Wethel.
Here.
City Manager Van Milligan.
Here.
And City Attorney Brumwell.
Here.
Thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh. I will turn over to you for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Adrian. I invite all who are able to please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our presentation this evening is Grand River Center receives national recognition from Exhibitor Magazine.
Weren't you guys just here?
I was just about to say that. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Matt Kalsovich, Parks and Recreation Director. It is my pleasure to come to you again because we were just here to recognize the Grand River Center and the team from Oakview Group, and they've been awarded with another prestigious honor. And so to tell you more about that and to highlight some of what that represents is General Manager with Oakview Group, Ryan Boniface.
Good evening, Ryan Boniface, General Manager, Grand River Center and Five Flags Center with Oakview Group. Thank you all for your time this evening. This one's pretty cool. I was pretty excited that we won this award with the for one of the best venues in the country. This honor, is great for our venue, but I also feel like it's a great one for our community as well. When you look across the venues that have won this year, we're in the conversations with Anaheim, Colorado, Columbus, Hawaii, Miami Beach, Kay Bailey and Dallas, and then here comes Grand River Center, right on that same level with all these other venues, which I thought was just super great. Again, this is a testament to our team. Our team does a lot of great work. We're so happy to be a part of this community. And a lot of our team members couldn't be here tonight, but we have a good amount here. We do have an event in the Grand River Center this evening, but they're here in spirit. But yeah, we're happy to be here in front of y'all and appreciate your time as always.
Well, Ryan, we'd love to keep seeing you. Keep on coming anytime you want. It's fantastic. I mean, this is great, and I love that your team joins you when you're here when they can. It's great also to hear that you've got an event going on a night like tonight.
Yep.
That's fantastic news too. But thanks a lot, everybody. Just the entire team and everybody at the Grand River Center, especially you, Ryan, and the work that you're doing. I know you took on more again with Five Flags as well, and just it's great to see that the choice we made just kind of keeps on bringing these rewards. So thank you very much for all the work that you're doing, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. They're trying to hide in the back, but it's not working. You guys want to come on in? Sure. Our official photographer is the city attorney.
Somebody have a camera?
So, yep. We like to send most of our official photographers to law school first. It's important. To the left. There you go. You're good, Ryan. Switcheroo.
Where do you want me to be?
Over here.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Congrats. Congratulations.
Being so tall.
And thanks again, Krenna. Appreciate that.
We'll move on to proclamations. Our first proclamation is Eradication of Generational Poverty Month.
I see Caprice Jones here to accept this proclamation this evening. So, Caprice, if you'd like to say a few words, feel free.
I just want to thank everyone for believing in our organization and what we're doing in the city to help lift individuals out of generational poverty mindsets. It's not something that a person can do just automatically to just erase generational poverty, but we truly believe that you can reach one person at a time, and that one person can be a ripple effect on thousands and millions of people to come. So thank you all, and I appreciate this award.
Thanks, Caprice. And every year you come back, it's a good reminder that you keep being an example of somebody who's living this mission and putting a group together and an organization together that lives this mission. So we appreciate you coming every year and bringing this proclamation, but more than anything, we appreciate the work you do every single day. So thanks for being here.
Appreciate you.
City of Dubuque proclamation. Whereas the Fountain of Youth program was founded 9 years ago and has planted its roots in the downtown community of Dubuque. And whereas the Fountain of Youth program aims to change mindsets and confront barriers that contribute to systemic poverty. And whereas it is the goal of the Fountain of Youth program to eradicate generational and situational poverty from our community. And whereas the greatest impact can be made through the joint efforts of community, organizations, government, and the residents of the community. Now, therefore, I, Brad M. Kavanaugh, Mayor of the City of Dubuque, Iowa, on behalf of the City Council, staff, and residents of Dubuque, do hereby proclaim the month of December 2025 as Eradication of Generational Poverty Month.
Our second proclamation is Human Rights Day.
All right, and Jay Kurchak is here to accept this proclamation this evening.
Well, Mayor Kavanaugh and members of the Dubuque City Council, on behalf of the Dubuque Human Rights Commission, myself and Rick are here and grateful that you make this proclamation and the official recognition of Human Rights Day on December 10th. Over 77 years ago, while climbing out of the wreckage of 2 world wars and the Holocaust, the United States joined countries around the globe to enshrine the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And today, as you make this proclamation for December 10th, we see human rights under attack here in our own state, in our own country. And that is across many different places, whether it's trying to silence people who want to voice their opinions, whether it's policy that seeks to reduce equity or to redefine gender, or whether it's rolling back protections for people with disabilities, or mass raids, detentions, and deportations of thousands of immigrants. And so while we watch the forces that tear the world apart, whether it's aggression or extremism, chaos, cynicism, or toxic independence, we show that together we can make sure that our shared values and determination can withstand these attacks. And so a future will be won by governments who unleash the full potential of all people with dignity that allow them to prosper and think freely, to innovate and to exist and love openly without fear. So we hope to encourage all citizens to join us on December 10th in observing Human Rights Day and to take action every day in our community to protect and uplift the inalienable human rights for all, because that which is not actively exercised will be passively lost. Thanks again. And also, on behalf of the Commission, we'd like to thank Council members Farber and Jones as your terms come to an end. We really appreciate all you've done in your terms in efforts to uphold human rights.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Jake, and Rick, for being here as well. You weren't on my list, Rick, sorry. I saw you sitting there, but didn't know you were coming up, so thanks a lot. And thanks for your service on the commission and for bringing this forward. This is a new proclamation, I believe, this year for the city of Dubuque, and I'm glad that we're doing it, and I hope we can continue that, because it is important that we uphold human rights and that we, as a city government, as a local government, state our part in doing what we can to make sure that that is something that we're going to promise to do and uphold here in Dubuque. So thank you for your work on it. Thanks for being here to accept this. City of Dubuque proclamation. Whereas Human Rights Day is observed annually on December 10th to commemorate the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948. And whereas the City of Dubuque is committed to fostering an environment where all individuals, regardless of race, color, creed, national origin, religion, age, disability, sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity, are treated with respect and have equitable access to housing, employment, education, and public life. And whereas in a year when state-level protections for certain groups have been narrowed, it is more important than ever for local communities to reaffirm their commitment to protecting and advancing human rights for all people. And whereas Human Rights Day provides an opportunity to reflect on progress made, acknowledge the work still ahead, and celebrate the residents, organizations, and public servants who work each day to uphold human rights and civil rights in the City of Dubuque. Now, therefore, I, Brad M. Kavanaugh, Mayor of the City of Dubuque, Iowa, on behalf of the City Council staff and residents of Dubuque, do hereby proclaim the 10th day of December 2025 as Human Rights Day in the City of Dubuque, Iowa, and encourage all residents to join in recognizing this day by renewing our commitment to shared humanity, belonging, and the protection of human rights for all.
We'll now move on to consent items. At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss one of the consent items, please approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input and state your name and address. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input. If more than one participant would like to speak, then city staff will determine the speaking order of the participants. Please state the item you would like removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and consideration, and consent items can be found on pages 2 through 4 of the agenda.
Thank you, Adrian. Do we have anyone here in chambers who would like to remove any of the consent items for separate discussion this evening? Seeing no one here. Anyone virtually?
I'll just note that Dean Bowles submitted written input regarding consent item number 14 that's been uploaded to that item.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Back to the table then for any of us.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file the documents, adopt the resolutions, and deal with the consent items as recommended.
Second by Farber.
We've got a motion by Resnick and a second by Farber. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones?
Aye.
Resnick?
Aye.
Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Wethel?
Aye.
Roussel?
Aye.
Farber?
Aye.
Sprank?
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Next are items set for public hearing. We have one resolution setting a public hearing on a proposed development agreement by and between the City of Dubuque, Iowa, and Stave Remuke LLC, providing for the issuance of urban renewal tax increment revenue grant obligations pursuant to the development agreement for December 15th, 2025.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel.
I move to receive and file, adopt the resolution, and set the public hearing for December 15th.
Second.
Got a motion by Roussel, second by Jones. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones?
Aye.
Resnick?
Aye.
Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Wethel?
Aye.
Roussel?
Aye.
Farber?
Aye.
Sprank?
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Next are boards and commissions. We have application review for the Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission, Resilient Community Advisory Commission, and Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. Well, the first up, we have the Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission. Here we have one 3-year term that runs through June 30th of 2027, and we have 4 applicants: Ryan Ahrens, Rodrigo Marin, Aaron Martin, and Sarah DeGire. Do we have anyone here to speak to any of these applications this evening? Please.
Hello, good evening. My name is Erin Martin, and I live at 2860 Danlin Court. I'm applying for the Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission, and I just wanted to introduce myself and say what a pleasure and an honor it is to be in front of you. And as a local Dubuquer who then moved away for 15 years and lived in Chicago, it has been absolutely phenomenal to come back to my hometown, a place that has built who I am, especially in the arts and arts education programs here, and rediscover Dubuque as an adult and be able to give back to the community. As a undergrad who did theater after working at the Bell Tower Theater here in Dubuque for 15 years, it feels like, or maybe when I was 15 years old and was doing my homework on the stage waiting for class to start. It just feels like a full circle moment. But now as the Director of Education at the National Mississippi River Museum and Aquarium, my passion being arts and arts education, giving these opportunities to not only students but also adult learning experiences, it's clear that my passion is hands-on experiential learning, and that's what I hope Dubuque continues to do, because it has definitely made me who I am today and made the substance that I have, and being able to give art as a form of advocacy and as a tool for experiential learning would just really make my my platform even greater and be able to reach as many students and give them as much confidence as possible. So thank you for your consideration. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Erin, for your comments.
Thanks.
All right. Anyone else for these applications for the Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission? Okay. Next up then is the Resilient
Mr. Mayor,
Community-
I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to note that Ryan Aarons did submit written input. That's
Thank
been
you very
included
much.
with the agenda
I should have
item.
asked. So thank you very much for interrupting me. Appreciate that. Okay, so Ryan Aarons submitted input. All right, Resilient Community Advisory Commission. We have one 3-year term through July 1st, 2028, and one applicant, Lucas Delaney. Do we have anyone here to speak to that application? Anyone virtually?
No.
Okay. And then the Zoning Board of Adjustment, one 5-year term through March 25th, 2026, and one applicant, Ben Leffelholtz. Do we have anyone here to speak to that application?
Hello, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I just want to thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm Ben Leffelholtz. I've got a young family I'm raising here in Dubuque. I'm heavily involved in the Kiwanis Club and Dubuque County Early Childhood Committee as well. The reason I wanted to be a part of the zoning board, I was called by one of the current board members, Keith Alvin, and kind of my passion, or the reason I want to get involved, is to promote development while protecting our existing investment. So I just want to thank you guys for your time, and that's a little bit about myself. So
All right.
thank
Well,
you guys.
Thank you, Ben, for your comments. All right. Anyone else here on that application, or anyone virtually? No. Okay. All right. We can go ahead and move on to public hearings, please.
At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss one of the public hearing items, please approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input for the public hearing you would like to speak to, and state your name and address. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function and state your question, or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input for the public hearing you would like to speak to. If more than one participant would like to speak, then city staff will determine the speaking order of the participants. Our public hearing this evening is Eagle Point Water Treatment Plant Roof Rehabilitation Project public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Sprank.
I motion that we receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second.
Got a motion by Sprank and a second by Jones. Mike, please.
Thank you. Water Department Director Chris Lester is recommending City Council adopt the resolution approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, an estimated cost of $500,000 for the Eagle Point Water Treatment Plant Roof Rehabilitation Project. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
All right, thank you, Mike. We are in a public hearing to consider City Council adopt the resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Eagle Point Water Treatment Plant Roof Rehabilitation Project. Do we have anyone from the public to address us on this item? Seeing no one here, anyone virtually?
No input.
Okay, thank you both. All right, back to the table then for any discussion. And Eric, before we start discussion, can you take us off the screens up here, please, on the live feed? Thank you very much. Any comments, questions, discussion on this item? Seeing none, hearing none. Motion here is to receive and file and adopt the resolution. Adrian, just call the roll, please.
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Next is public input. At this time, anyone participating in the meeting may address the city council on the action items on the agenda or on matters under the control of the city council. For all in-person attendees, please approach the podium and state your name and address when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input. If more than one participant would like to speak, then city staff will determine the speaking order of the participants. Individual remarks are limited to 5 minutes, and the overall public input period is limited to 30 minutes. Under the Iowa Open Meetings Law, the City Council can take no formal action on comments given during public input or that do not relate to the action items on the agenda.
Thank you, Adrian. Any public input this evening? Seeing nobody here, do we have anything virtually?
Written input was received regarding two separate action items. For action item number 1, Elaine Cray, 3095 Lindale Street, and then for action item number 2, Clark Schultz, 2925 Burlington Street, and that input has been uploaded to each agenda item.
All right, thank you very much, Adrian. Any other input? All right, seeing and hearing none, we can move on to action items, please.
Action item number 1 is Commercial Air Service Minimum Revenue Guarantee.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel.
I move to receive and file and place this item on the December 15th, 2025 agenda.
Thank you.
Second?
Got a motion by Ms. Roussel, second by Ms. Farber. Mike, please.
Thank you. The purpose of this memorandum is a follow-up to the October 6, 2025 City Council meeting. At that meeting, staff provided an update on commercial air service and Denver Air minimum revenue guarantee, providing daily air service to O'Hare Airport in Chicago. Prior to restoring commercial air service, the nonprofit DBQ Air and partners reviewed data and performed community surveys and business meetings. In calendar year 2019, which of course was pre-COVID, FAA employments reported 36,521 passengers flew from Dubuque to O'Hare as their destination or connection on 3 flights daily. During that same year, the U.S. Department of Transportation Origination and Destination Report showed an average of 99 passengers flew from Dubuque to O'Hare daily. For Denver Air to be financially independent, requiring no minimum revenue guarantee, they need to have 40% of those 99 customers fly out of Dubuque daily. According to the 2022 Mead and Hunt study, using global distribution system and airline data, there are 176,498 passengers in Dubuque's catchment area, approximately 30 to 40 minutes from Dubuque. Passenger demand each way data indicates approximately 505 passengers fly out of an airport to a destination from the Dubuque catchment area daily. In December 2023, prior to pursuing daily scheduled air service, a survey was part of a broader study effort to provide a detailed understanding of the want and need for commercial air service at the Dubuque Regional Airport among a variety of stakeholders and regional users. The results of the studies were intended to provide information for the purposes of air planning, air service, and airport development, overall economic planning and development, transit forecasting and development, and partnerships and participation in a variety of multi-community and regional efforts. When you look at the employer survey, there were 228 responses and 28 interviews. As far as results, strong support, most employers, 73%, support efforts to attract Dubuque commercial air service, recognizing it might require financial guarantees. As far as financial support, most employers, 69%, also support the use of city and/or county funds to attract air service, while with voluntary private funding efforts, 51% support with 29% neutral. The desired service, Chicago O'Hare is by far the leading choice for the new hub airport service, followed by Dallas, Denver, and Minneapolis. The willingness to use, employers estimate that they would be willing to spend an average of $142 more for a round-trip flight from Dubuque as compared to a similar flight from Chicago O'Hare. Economic impact of air service expansion, 2/3 or 68% expect a positive impact on their business. Almost all, 95%, expect a positive impact on the greater Dubuque area economy. Then as far as resident surveys, more than 8,000 residents responded to the survey. As far as strong support, the vast majority, 91% of respondents strongly, 78%, or somewhat, 13%, support efforts to attract Dubuque Air Service. And willingness to use, the vast majority, 86% of respondents would definitely, 68%, or probably 18%, consider using Dubuque Regional Airport if air service were expanded to a major hub airport. Desired service, Chicago O'Hare is by far the leading choice for a new hub airport service, followed by Denver, Dallas, Minneapolis, and Atlanta. The impacts of Dubuque Air Service expansion, 84% expect a positive impact on their household. Almost all, 97%, expect a positive impact on the greater Dubuque area economy. After service was restored, DBQ Air, the not-for-profit, continued to survey customers. The Dubuque Regional Airport Traveler Survey, so results from a survey targeted towards travelers flying through Dubuque indicate that people who use the service have a positive experience. Here are some of the key results. 88% rate their experience at the airport as excellent, and 8% rate it as good. 93% are very likely to recommend the airport to friends, family, or colleagues. 96% are very likely or somewhat likely to use the airport in the future. 58% of respondents were leisure travelers, 29% were business travelers, and 13% were a combination of business and leisure. Current employment and minimum revenue guarantee funding data. To attain self-sufficiency, DBQ Air Service Consultant estimates Denver Air will need to reach an average 80% load factor. The last full month, October 2025, the load factor was 53%. On a 50-seat regional aircraft, an additional 13 passengers per flight is needed to reach 80%. The Dubuque County Board of Supervisors has allocated $100,000 towards the minimum revenue guarantee, leaving the business community to contribute $650,000. If the City Council decides on December 15, 2025, to direct the Airport Commission to issue 90-day notice to Denver Air that the MRG payments will end, the goal will be to not spend the money offered by Dubuque County. The Greater Dubuque Development Corporation and the Dubuque Area Chamber of Commerce are reporting limited success in raising $650,000, now that Dubuque County has offered the $100,000, as a match for the city's $750,000. But efforts continue at this time. At the December 15, 2025 City Council meeting, the City Council could review the amount of money raised from the business community and review current numbers on Denver Air employments and the actual demands on the minimum revenue guarantee fund through that date to help determine how many more months it is anticipated that the minimum revenue guarantee can be paid. That review will be especially important because of the 90-day notice requirement if the city is going to stop paying the minimum revenue guarantee to Denver Air. Denver Air has agreed that if the city is going to stop paying the minimum revenue guarantee to Denver Air has agreed if they do receive a 90-day notice of termination, that they will make every effort to relocate aircraft and flight crew so that the city would not need to pay the minimum revenue guarantee to the full 90 days. Dubuque Regional Airport Commission Air Service Committee Subcommittee is recommending to the Airport Commission at the Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025 meeting. Airport Director continues communications with Denver Air regarding the minimum revenue guarantee status, and in coordination with City Council, invoke contractual actions required per the agreement. I respectfully recommend that the Mayor and City Council receive and file this information and be prepared to take final action at the December 15, 2025 City Council meeting.
Thank you, Mike. All right, I'll kick us off for a discussion here on this item and then open it up for the rest of the council to talk about. So, I wanted to make sure that we brought this forward in conversation with our city manager. I want to make sure we put this on the agenda today. I know it's strange to say, hey, we're going to talk about something and then we're going to just put it on the agenda so we can talk about it again. But this particular item, I think it was important for us as a council to get an update on how it's going, because we have a deadline here on the 10th of December based on the agreement that we made that we would like the business community to step up in some way to be able to assist with this. And because we have put forward money from the city council, from the city agenda, the city budget to do this. And so the reason that we're sitting here having this discussion is to be able to start the discussion, is my intention, and then be able to make a decision after we finish up these conversations with the business community to see if there's enough support for us to move forward on the December 15th date. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about a few things, so just please bear with me and excuse the extra time I'm going to take to do it, because this conversation has gotten way out of whack, and we've got to remind ourselves how this started and where we've gone. When we first lost service in 2022, one of the first things that community leaders did, so I would put the Airport Director Todd Dalsing in this group, GDDC, the Chamber, several other folks, the DRA, the Travel Dubuque. There are multiple different organizations, Airport Commission, members of the county supervisors. I was very involved from the start. We got together and we said, okay, how do we need to address this with our members of Congress? Because this is not a normal business. Airlines don't run like a normal business. This is a heavily federally regulated business model. That's the way air service works in the United States and all over the world. So our options really before us were to say, all right, we either go it alone and do our own thing, or we get some sort of assistance from the federal government, or the federal government lets us into this program called Essential Air Service, because there's other communities like ours that are kind of our size. Waterloo's an example in Iowa, Sioux City's an example, several others. And then all over, I mean, the Midwest and all over the United States where these Essential Air Service, EAS cities exist. We first went to our members of Congress and we said, hey, can we get into this EAS program? Is that a possibility? The answer was an emphatic no. Absolutely not. We are not going to talk about opening up the Essential Air Service program for any new communities. Why would our members of Congress say this? Well, nobody's really ever asked for that. Since 2013, this program has been closed to anybody else who was in it. The reason Dubuque was not in it is because we had sustainable air service at that time. We had it going on for quite a while, years and years and years, and we didn't qualify for the Essential Air Service program at that time because of that. So when we asked for it, we were asking for something that would require an act of the full Congress of the United States to allow it to happen. Congress would have to agree by vote and then have it signed by the President of the United States to let us into the Essential Air Service program and anyone else into the Essential Air Service program. This is how it would work. It would probably have to happen in line with the actual, I've just lost the term for it, the Todd Dalsing, I'm sorry, can I ask you, Congress puts money towards air service, the FAA reauthorization. It just came to me by looking at Todd. So FAA reauthorization, which happens every 5 years, is that correct? Yeah, so every 5 years is the window for this. So we had a window of time that we'd be able to do this in, but essentially, and let's just be honest with ourselves. I mean, we watch Congress function. They're struggling quite a bit. It's just, I'm just saying that as a matter of fact. It's not a partisan statement. Congress is struggling to function in a way that would allow something like this to happen. It wasn't a realistic go of it to go and say, hey, let's get into the Essential Air Service program and do this. So when our members of Congress said, we will not assist you in that because we don't think it's going to be able to happen, their suggestion was, you should try this other route, Dubuque. You should try getting the Small Community Air Service Development Grant. And we, as members of Congress, will help try to advocate for you with the Federal Aviation Administration and the Department of Transportation to increase the amount of money in that SCASD grant. That happened. They helped us to do that. We got more money in that SCASD grant. Our members of Congress helped. And we were able to move forward with some more cash in hand to be able to entice an airline to come our way. We had this grant already. And the purpose of that grant before COVID was to get another flight that would go west, probably to Denver, not to another flight to O'Hare. But after COVID, that wasn't a possibility anymore. We lost all air service, so the SCASD grant became our ticket back to getting that air service. So we had $2.1 million with our local match to be able to go and do that, to say, all right, we're going to go and we're going to try to get an airline to come our way. So it wasn't that we were going completely on our own. It wasn't that we had to go out and fundraise to our own business community. We didn't have to put any tax dollars in large amounts, at least, as the city of Dubuque towards this situation. But we went out with $2.1 million and said, okay, we'll give it a shot. We'll try. So we did. And within 2 years, we landed probably one of the best situations that we could ask for. And I'm not kidding when I say this. I mean, we got an airline that has agreements with the 3 legacy carriers that when Denver Air Connection, our airline right now, lands in Chicago, we can go in with any one of those other carriers and fly to multiple other places in the United States. This is actually a rare thing. Most airlines do not have interline agreements like this. There are only a few, and Denver Air is one of them. So we landed this. Why didn't we just get American or United or Delta to come here instead? Because they didn't want to. Those airlines were not expanding at the time, and they still aren't expanding into regional markets. They're fighting over big markets. They're not expanding into regional markets. So this is how we landed this. Denver Air has been a great partner to work with. They're a great company. It's been a great airline. I've flown on it personally several times. I've really enjoyed the experience. I especially enjoyed the experience after the construction was done in Chicago O'Hare. There was some real challenges with this. We started in November. Construction at O'Hare started right away after that. Until March, we were riding on a bus to a plane that was sitting out on the tarmac. It was not a normal experience. But it wasn't Denver Air's fault. It was just a lot of other things that were happening. Denver Air, after that experience, said, hey, we agree with you. That was a terrible experience for everybody involved. And we asked, well, can we get morning flights? And they said, you know what? Yeah, we will do morning flights. And in fact, we'll overnight the plane there. So it's been a really good situation since May. There's been some real challenges, though. The biggest, I think, by far, is actually mentioned in this memo, and it is the fact that when you survey travelers right now, 58% of those respondents said they were leisure travelers, and 29% they were business travelers. That is a complete flip-flop from before the pandemic. 100% flip-flop. It used to be the other way around. The other way around was business travel sustained your air service in a community, and now leisure travel sustains our air service. One thing that's not mentioned in this memo that makes that even tougher is that before the pandemic, ultra low-cost carriers like Frontier and Allegiant and carriers like that have really low ticket costs weren't really big players in the market, and now they are. So now that we're fighting for leisure travelers primarily, we aren't fighting an apples to apples fight. We're fighting an apples to oranges to all kinds of other fruits type of fight, because it is very difficult to compete with really low ticket costs like that when you're trying to build a service that's built for everybody, business, leisure, everybody who's going. All these challenges are to say that we're sitting in a situation where after the SCASD funds ran out, and they did run out pretty fast because it takes years to change people's behavior in something like this. That means we got to tell everybody, we don't want you to go to Cedar Rapids and Moline and Madison so much, and forget that drive to Chicago. It's a really long one, so let's just forget about that. Come to fly out of Dubuque instead. It's not as easy as people just saying, okay, there's a lot of factors that are involved that have to get people to change. And what we've seen is it's been really hard to change that behavior. It's been really hard to get people to stop doing those things and start flying from here. The other part of this that made this really hard, and I'm going to get into this a little bit more after I let everybody else talk a little bit, is how the conversation then progressed during the previous election that we just had in November, because it got to a point where people were saying we shouldn't even have air service in a community like Dubuque. We should just be happy without having it. I'm sorry, guys, that's crazy. It's crazy talk to talk like that. It's not okay to say that we shouldn't have air service in a community the size of Dubuque. Think of all the things we're doing. I mean, just think of all the stuff that we're doing and the ways we're growing. I can look out the window and see progress right out there with a new art museum that's going up in the next couple of years, along with multiple other major projects. How are we going to do any of that if we don't have air service? We're not going to do those things if we don't have air service. So that's just off the table in my mind. This discussion of let's just be happy with driving somewhere is off the table. We can't go down that route. But the challenge here is that we don't have another funding mechanism from the federal government right now, like almost every other community in the country does, to be able to pay for this. So we made a prudent decision, in my opinion, to try to continue to pay for this and see what else we could do. And then reach out to our business community and say, hey, can you help us? I'm going to be honest and say I don't blame the businesses locally for having a tough time saying yes to this. The reason is other communities don't have to do that like we do. Their answer basically has been, from what I understand from talking to the Chamber and Greater Dubuque Development, is that well, why should we have to pay money out of our budgets for our business to be able to do this when other communities are in this EAS program and they don't have to, or other communities have air service and they don't have to. It's a real predicament for us. I mean, it really is. And what I hope we can do is look at this as a community problem that we have to face together, because that's exactly what it is. This is something that we as a community are facing that we have to figure out a solution for together. The right answer is difficult because it's like a 50-50 split out there when you go and just talk to any random person on the street, which a lot of us did in the last few months. It's about a 50-50 split on people saying, do everything you can to keep air service or stop paying for air service from our own money. It's a really difficult conversation. So I'm going to leave it at that. I've got a few more things to say that I'll throw in there after we're done with more discussion, but I would love to hear the rest of the thoughts from the council as well as we look through this.
Well, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Jones.
You're right that the election we just went through kind of toxified the issue, poisoned the well in a lot of ways. People were, particularly the mayoral candidate who was unsuccessful, was not telling the whole truth, was making up his own facts, and was pointing out to people what a wasteful thing that was for the city of Dubuque to engage in trying to protect something that is beneficial to all of the citizens of Dubuque. And I think, too, that we did the right thing. I think that it's incredibly important that a city this size have air service that can get business people in and out, that can get leisure travelers in and out, that can preserve and protect the growth and progress that we've enjoyed over the last decade or two in spite of COVID. We've enjoyed some pretty good progress, and I do see it coming to a screeching halt if nobody can get here quickly and easily with commercial air service. I agree that Denver Air has been an extraordinarily good partner, and that the air service industry is different than everything else that you deal with in our lives. I couldn't be more disappointed in our federal elected representatives for not diving into this and taking it on. It's an incredible inequity. Dubuque is not being treated the same as Waterloo, as Cedar Falls, as Sioux City, in Mason City, and other cities in Iowa that have daily air service subsidized by the federal grant. And that program being shut to us because we were successful once is just completely unfair and inequitous and needs to be fixed. And that's the only real fix for the long term. We can't afford to do this forever. But I also think we can't afford to not do it for a while longer. This is something that whether people see it or understand it or agree with it, I've been sitting here a long time, and I'm not going to be sitting here much longer, but the fact is, I see the benefits in this community. I've heard from lots of people the benefits of this community, heard from lots and lots of people when we lost American about what a tragedy that was and how are we going to fix it. And we've got a fix on the table. It's going to take some years to get it all the way fixed. But Denver Air is not just talking about gaining enough passenger support in Dubuque to be successful and sustainable. They're talking about if we can do that, let's fly you west. Let's look at that Denver destination. So I think we need to lean in at the federal level and get our Congress to act on our behalf, which is what they were, by the way, elected for, and move this forward. In the meantime, as we all know, we're on our own, and the success of this community, the future trajectory of this community, relies on us to make a good decision here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Resnick.
Mr. Mayor, having the airport service is extremely important.
But as I mentioned when we were discussing it before, when 50 people take off, almost 60,000 people don't. And they don't necessarily, if it doesn't affect their lives, they don't necessarily know why it's worth, so much money. I mean, even when there's a real need for school upgrades, that didn't pass. And we have some issue. I was trying to think of a solution rather than just being grouchy. So I was wondering if maybe, since we're saying it's such a great priority, maybe the citizens, the residents would support it if we chose to spend the money on the airport rather than something else. There's a tough suggestion. Rather than what? But it's the constant adding of fees and taxes and other kinds of things that I tell you, as the folks who went out can say, I mean, they really feel underwater. A lot of people. They love Dubuque. They love where it is. They love their friends and their neighborhoods, and they'll do almost anything for it. But they can't afford another $300. I mean, and I'm not being sarcastic. I mean, they can't afford another $300 on whatever great thing we can bring or keep. So, I mean, that's a suggestion for us. Maybe we can find a way to say, and I'm going to talk about it for this, for the firefighting issue as well. If it's such a priority, we need to choose it over something else. So that's a big challenge for us to think about, let alone do. But I would just like to say that I'm hoping that we are in a roll up our sleeves kind of moment, because I absolutely agree with Mr. Jones and the mayor and everyone I think who's about to speak that it is very important to have that air service. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Farber.
So I'm not going to be grouchy because I'm not a grouchy person about this issue, but I am a problem solver, and I just have some thoughts as we were chatting tonight about advocacy and creating a coalition. And I know that when groups of residents get together to promote an issue, whether or not they fill the chambers, whether or not there's a walk in the park, where there's a demonstration, that legislators do listen. And wouldn't it be interesting, and I'm looking right at Todd, to potentially get some coalition from and within our region, from those other airports that are between the rock and the hard place, just like we are, that have this issue with federal funding, and then see a depletion, if you will, of residents, of businessmen going to alternative sites for air transport. Is there a way to create and advocate with more feet on the street? And I'm just posing that as a question. And I know that you know best as to what your neighbors think and how the community reacts in terms of all the other smaller entities within this region, within even the tri-state region. To think about that, because I think that's a powerful tool for that. And I agree with my colleagues that it's important to preserve and to protect the business and the economic development that we see in Dubuque, and to keep the momentum going. And it might be a hard stop if we do not have an airport to support that future growth. So just wanted to share that potential opportunity. And I know that Todd's listening and will maybe think about it for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farber. Ms. Roussel.
So I'm glad that we've taken the time to investigate so many opportunities to buy us more time to increase our passenger numbers and change our people's travel habits, because it takes time. And our task force and so many have worked hard to bring our air service to Dubuque. And once it's gone, it's going to be very hard to get back and once again change those travel habits. It's sad that our business community has not been able to support us financially as we had hoped. it would be great to see if some of that support comes through by our December 15th deadline. But I think we have to be realistic now about what our choices really are, and that the EAS is close to us. Even though we want to continue to work with our federal partners, our time for making this happen may have worked its way. I'm looking forward to seeing all the information on December 15th. I truly feel that air service is critical for our community. I would hate for it to give the 90-day notice, but we need to be realistic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rousseau. Ms. Wethel?
I am looking forward to discussion in a couple weeks, but I have to say that I'm just so disappointed. I'm disappointed in our federal government. I'm not disappointed in our community. We have given it our all. We have been all in on this. We have been face-to-face in DC multiple times. When they have come here, we have done everything to drive home to them our priority of air service. There is no question any of them could say, hey, what's Dubuque's #1 priority when they talk to you? Everybody knows it's air service. We are building a new medical school. We are building a new museum of art. We have delivered on our housing. We have delivered. We have built childcare in our community. We have done it all, and we have done it quickly. And anybody who denies us air service ability at the federal level needs to hear that loud and clear. This is what it looks like when we are forgotten. This is what it looks like when the federal government in DC forgets who they represent, and it's rural America if you represent Iowa. And so my disappointment cannot be more expressed in what we have done and how far we have come. And I am sure that I will have people reach out to me in these coming days. And I understand all sides of the story. I understand all of it. I just wish that there was a clearer answer, because we have advocated. We have advocated at every level, in every moment that we have been given. So I know that this is going to be a hard decision and hard discussion, and I appreciate all the work of so many people who have got us here. I mean, this isn't just we tried a little. This is all the cards on the table, all the time, since 2022. So I appreciate everybody's discussions and passion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spring?
Yeah. As I said before, and as everybody said, we've tried. We've ran out of options. There's no more room to go. Folks have changed their spending habits. They're not changing back. They're not wanting to fly out of Dubuque, sadly. So I count, unless something magically changes before the 15th, I'm still going to be voting no on that, because it's just, we have tried. I know citizens want their family members to come into town or have a way to fly directly into town. And I would love that their family members were to fly more often into town by the 15th. It just doesn't seem to be happening. Folks just don't want to fly out of Dubuque, sadly. And I know that there are ramifications of if we let Denver Air go, what will happen is we'll have issues with federal funding for our airport in the long term. We may not get our runways taken care of and such. So there's bigger ramifications for that. It's just folks don't want to fly out of town, sadly. Hopefully our business community changes their mind in the next couple of weeks, but it doesn't sound like that's seeming to happen. So that's kind of where I'm standing. And of course, Mr. Mayor, this has been a Herculean effort for you. You have been such an advocate for it, and it's just frustrating that we just can't seem to get anywhere. We've begged the feds when we've gone to DC, and just they've left us in the wings. So it's frustrating. It's beyond frustrating. So, but thank you for all that you've done on helping us. So.
Well, Mr. Sprank, I appreciate that. I do. Thank you. But I want to make sure that everybody knows something really clearly. I am one small part of a much larger effort to get this done. And I'm not doing this because it's fun and because I like it. I'll be honest with everybody. Like, I'm going to say something really honestly. I don't particularly love flying in the sky. I don't love heights to begin with, and 30,000 feet is pretty high up there. I just don't love being in a plane. I don't love the whole experience of flying and going somewhere. It's just not something I love to do. That might be a surprise to people for as much as I've talked about this. I don't really like it. That said, though, there's one reason that I've decided this is a really important thing to fight for these last few years, and it's because we need it that badly. This community needs it that badly. I don't care if I ever fly again. I would still fight for this because I think it's really important for Dubuque. I just think it's a really important thing. So I'm going to say a few things to close things out. If there's any other thoughts after this, feel free, and we can jump those in before we go on to the next item, because it sounds like we're ready to just, this is the start of a conversation for the next 2 weeks that we can then continue and finalize in some shape on the 15th of December. So this is also an invitation to the rest of the community to make sure that you are coming out to speak to us and about this issue and figure out any sort of solutions that we might have. But I want to point some things out that I think are really, really important that we know. If we decide to stop this service, what ends up happening is we as a council will direct the Airport Commission to issue a 90-day notice to Denver Air Connection to say that we need you to stop the service within 90 days. It could go that full 90 days, and we'd still be responsible for minimum revenue guarantees. Denver Air Connection could agree to stop earlier than that, and we could agree to that too if we wanted. It would mean not paying a minimum revenue guarantee. Those things could happen. So 90 days or less of air service if we decide on the 15th. That we are no longer we're gonna have the Airport Commission issue that notice. After that happens, and I'm right about this, so anybody can argue with me, but I'm right. It's gonna be years before Dubuque sees air service again of any way, shape, or form in any large numbers. It will be years. We will not have air service for a long time. The Essential Air Service Program could fit us, but it is an incredible long shot for us to get into that program. We are going to have to fight tooth and nail with all of Congress and all the rest of the federal government to have somebody agree to open that program up again. It will be the only fight we have at that point, so we're going to have to fight it if we decide to do that. But it will be an incredible fight, and it's a long shot fight. And I don't know how many years it's going to take, but I think it's going to take a while. If we get into the Essential Air Service Program, we don't really have new opportunities for new flights after that. The Essential Air Service Program essentially is 1, maybe 2 flights a day for a community. It's what we'd have now. We would have the money to be able to pay for that in a minimum revenue guarantee. That's what the Essential Air Service Program does. It pays the airline through federal funds. But we won't really have the ability to go out to other airlines and say, hey, why don't you give us some more routes? Why don't you do some more things? Let's see if we can go to Denver. Let's go west too. We're not going to have those opportunities to go chase airlines the way that we had before if we're in the Essential Air Service Program. Those doors close more. Here's another thing that I worry about, and this is actually something I've started to think about the last few days, and it's more real to me now. I worry about how other airlines are going to see us as a community if we let this go and say that we're going to stop this because of all the discussion that we've had as a community. People read the news. People hear what people have said in the community. And I worry that the reputation for Dubuque will be, Dubuque is not an air service friendly community. We are not a place that other airlines want to come to. They just backed off and didn't go forward with this. I worry about that. I worry that that's going to be the case. And then, of course, I worry about the federal funds that Mr. Sprank just mentioned. If we don't have a certain number of enplanements for commercial air service in Dubuque, we lose money for other projects, other things that are needed in an airport. And then I worry about the impacts on everything else in Dubuque. Now, if we continue the air service, if we decide on the 15th to continue air service, the air service can continue to grow. Now, it's been slow, but we did just have the best month we've ever had. We were at 53% for a load factor in October. It's the best month we've ever had. And we've had continual best months we've ever had since the month of June. It's gone up every single month. And I think that's important to point out. That it's been slow. We're not at that 80% mark yet, but we're moving up the line. If we continue to see improvement like that, even if it takes a year or more, we will have the opportunity for more flights. I think Denver Air Connection would be able to say, hey, maybe we'll get you another flight in a day. And that's when things can really go. You know, it's sort of like, progress begets progress or money begets money, those kinds of things. I mean, this would be a situation where we'd have that. And I also think that if we start to show that progress and we show that there's that continued demand here, that other airlines will continue to take notice. Other airlines are still in the conversation. There are other airlines that are being talked to by our consultant, and they're having conversations with about coming to Dubuque. And it's just conversation, but they're having the conversation. And we would and if we continue, we would have to weather any storms that come our way. I mean, like just what we've had right now. We would have to go through the tough times. Mr. Sprank just made the point of this is a difficult time for people. People are not spending money in the way that they have in other years. That's absolutely true. It is tough. And Mr. Resnick, you said people don't have an extra $300 to spend. You're absolutely correct about that. So it's a difficult time to be doing this. But there are also brighter times when people are flying more and people are doing more things. And when you make it to those times, then it makes this even that much more worth it. So these are all the things on my mind as we move forward with this discussion. Like I said, I'm very happy that we've started it here and that I should say continued, but we've been talking about this for a long time. But I mean, we have a 2-week window here, and we invite everybody to come and talk to us about it and what you have to say, because if it's not clear to you, I'll just make it abundantly clear. This is a really hard decision for us. This is not something we're sitting up here like, boom, we're going to do this. This is exactly what it is. Every single one of us is wrestling with different factors here as we talk about this. So. Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
It'll be helpful for us when we look at this in a couple of weeks to really know the impact on the FAA dollars on the commercial side of the business side of the airport, away from the commercial aviation side, because that's been talked about, but not in great detail. And I think people in the community need to understand that there's a lot of money that comes from the FAA that supports the general aviation side of the airport that is tied to emplanements on the commercial side of the airport. So we need to have that pretty plain in front. Come on up if you got it, buddy.
Give it to you now so you can think about it for the next 2 weeks, right? Todd Dulsing, Dubuque Airport. So what you're talking about is the Airport Improvement Program. And the way it works is if you have 10,000 enplanements or passengers that go through screening get on the plane, you're guaranteed $1.3 million to be used towards airport improvement program projects. And those are, as you mentioned, I think runways, taxiways, snow removal equipment, aircraft rescue, firefighting, terminals. They're all, they rate them on a score from, 1 to, several hundred, of course, in justification. But if you have less than 10,000 enplanements, then it's on a graduating scale. So, if you just wanted to take 5,000, for example, that would be about half of $1.3 million. And if you have 0 enplanements, you could be looking at $0. So there are some instances where you can apply for AIP funds and get those, but it's few and far between. It's definitely not guaranteed. But as an FAA certified airport, we are still required to maintain that airport to FAA standards. So, the apron project or the taxiway project that we're doing right now that you're all aware of, it's a $40 million project over 5 years. That's 90% federally funded out of that AIP program, 10% local. So that 40 million would then come out of, whatever pot, but it wouldn't be federally funded. Similar to a $5 million apron project we're currently doing, that's 90-10. And then any runway, taxiway improvements, our snow removal equipment, what we maintain, but we just plowed 12 inches of snow over the weekend with brooms and plows and loaders. Those cost millions of dollars for that equipment. That's all funded 90-10 federally 90%, 10% local. We're due for an upgrade in an aircraft rescue firefighting vehicle pending the service that we have, and that can exceed easily over $1 million. Again, 90% federally funded, 10% local. So that's the nuts and bolts of it. If I can answer any questions too, but
Thank you.
yeah.
So my point is that we got $1.3 million a year at risk, plus additional project-specific money if we can't maintain a pretty good level of commercial service on that side of the airport. The other point I just want to make, and this is another doom and gloomer, I'm afraid, but if EAS is opened up by Congress, we're not going to be the only applicant there. It's going to be a lot of cities, and some of them are going to be potentially better markets. And the airlines are going to shop the better markets. We still may not win if that opens up, but I still think that's the best answer for sustainability. Until we get over this hump, I think we can get back to 80% employments. But I don't think it's an easy lift, and I don't think it's a short-term lift. I think we're going to be in this for a while, or we're out of it and done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Todd, I have a follow-up to something you just said. So if we don't get $1.3 million a year, we still have to clear the runways, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, yep. And, this doesn't just benefit commercial air service. I should have mentioned that too. This benefits all air service. So the corporate aircraft that are based on the field, the transient aircraft, corporate aircraft that are flying here to do business, the University of Dubuque that has over 500 students now and, 20, 30 some aircraft, that all these benefit all users, not just the commercial air service. But yes, we will still be required, and we get inspected every year as a certified airport. Everything from our paint markings to our signs to our lights to our equipment to everything, it has to still maintain FAA regulations.
So if we don't have federal money to pay for that in the form of a $1.3 million payment to that program, how do we pay for it?
That's a question that I'll be bringing back to the council.
So it would be a budgetary question, essentially.
It would be a budgetary
You'd be asking us on an annual basis to say, well, we need $1 million for a new, how much did you say was the?
For a fire truck?
Yeah, for the fire truck?
Yeah, say $1 million for a fire truck.
Okay,
Yep.
so the entire program that you just mentioned pays for one fire truck.
Yeah, well, for 1 year.
Sure.
1.3 million. So instead of me coming to you and asking for $100,000 on a 10% match on $1 million, the switch will be coming asking for the full $1 million.
It's an incredibly important point that you just made there, Todd. I mean, that's just an incredibly important point. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Resnick.
Mr. Dulcin.
Yeah, you might want to just stay there, Todd.
You're talking money, so we have to talk to you a lot.
Please.
So it sounds like it's actually cheaper to play the minimum revenue guarantee than it is to, it's cheaper to pay this than to pay the full freight for the upkeep. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, essentially, yes. Yeah. So we have the funding budgeted through our next fiscal year. So this wouldn't impact us until the following fiscal year if we were to lose all service. But it will impact not 27, it'd be 28. Yeah.
So we're getting a bargain right now with the minimum revenue guarantee, huh?
Yeah, depending on, however you look at it, yes.
Well, anyway, it does definitely give us something to think about. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, Ms. Wetham.
From when to when is that fiscal year?
I'm sorry?
The 10,000 employments.
It actually goes by calendar year.
Is it calendar
Yeah,
year?
yep, it's January 1 to December 31st. It doesn't follow the federal fiscal year or, of course, our city fiscal year.
Because
And then let me also add too, so I can see where your mind's going. You're adding up the numbers as you're going down that graph. How close are we going to be to 10,000? We can also include our Sun Country destinational charters. So you could add another, and I'm sorry, I don't have the math with me, but we won't exceed 10,000 this year. But we budgeted originally for $1 million because in the last FAA reauthorization, they raised it from 1 million to 1.3. So we were still in that $1 million budget because we didn't have that information. I'm going to say we're going to be around 8,500 employments this year, something like that. So you put that on the graduating scale from 1.3, now we're going to be close to that 1 million mark. With the Sun Country employments as well, in addition to what you have in your memo.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, Ms. Farber.
could I ask you a question about the UD? Does that count for employments? Because all those planes are
No,
taking
that's
off.
aircraft operations. So, and that, by the way, which you know from our presentations, we are the second busiest airport in Iowa, and UD makes up about half of those aircraft operations. And aircraft operation is defined as a takeoff or a landing, so that'd be 2.
All right, thank you.
Definitely benefits them, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for Todd before we actually let him sit down?
No, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Todd.
Yeah, of
Appreciate
course.
it. Any other further discussion? Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone, for this discussion. I think it was incredibly helpful as we move forward in the next couple of weeks here. Well, motion on the table here is to receive and file and then place this item once again on the December 15th agenda. So, Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 2 is Fire Department FTE increase and fire cost recovery fee.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
I move to receive and file and approve.
Second by Wethel.
Got a motion by Jones and a second by Wethel. Mike, please.
Thank you. I have approved adjustments in the Dubuque Fire Department's emergency medical services billing for advanced life support and basic life support effective January 1st, 2026, based on recommendations from Fire Chief Amy Scheller. Current rates have not been adjusted in more than 10 years and no longer reflect the true cost of service. Fire Chief Amy Scheller is further recommending implementation of a fire cost recovery fee and a budget amendment to create 5 additional firefighter positions. Updating these fees and implementing a fire cost recovery mechanism will help support the request for 5 firefighter paramedic positions in the current fiscal year 2026, and 9 firefighter paramedic positions through the fiscal year 2027 budget process to improve the department's minimum staffing. I concur with the recommendations to create a fire cost recovery fee and to create 5 firefighter positions, and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval, and Fire Chief Amy Scheller has a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Amy Scheller, Dubuque Fire Department. I'm joined today with Bureau Chief Sam Janke, who oversees our EMS Bureau, as well as a couple members from senior staff. So thank you for the opportunity to present on cost recovery and our FTE request. So before getting into the depths of the presentation, I'd like to go over some acronyms and some basic terminology that's important to know about EMS billing. Currently, the Dubuque Fire Department EMS transport billing rates are listed. Basic life support, which is no invasive procedures, we currently bill at $620. Advanced life support, ALS, level 1 is at least 1 ALS intervention. That's at $735. And advanced life support, level 2, those are more advanced ALS interventions, 3 medications, IV, surgical airway, chest decompression. At least one of those more advanced methods is used. Those are billed at $1065. Under Dubuque Code, Section 631, ambulance service rates are established by and adjusted by the city manager. Okay, so we talk about ambulance billing and payer mix when we present our budget every year, and I wanted to provide an opportunity to review our ambulance payer mix. The payer mix for every city is a little different, and it involves these 5 areas. Medicare for Dubuque makes up 52.4% of our payer mix. Medicaid makes up 22.5% of our payer mix. Insurance, which is both in and out of network, is 12.7% of our payer mix. Private pay is 10.2%. And workers' comp is 2.2%. That's Dubuque snapshot. Part of the conversation of understanding payer mix and cost reporting involves what's known as Ground Emergency Medical Transport, or GEMT. So defined, it's a program where publicly owned and operated ambulance service can receive state and federal payments for Medicaid-related EMS transports. These payments help cover the gap between what it costs to provide the service and what they receive from Medicaid. Cost report requirements. Each eligible publicly owned and operated EMS transport provider must submit their cost report to the Iowa Department of Human Services by November 30th of each year. The cost report determines what actual costs with providing the transport services. It's subject to federal and state audits. So the third-party report for Dubuque Fire is done, the cost report for the Dubuque Fire Department is done by a third-party provider. To comply with the GEMT program requirements, the department contracts with a third-party vendor to complete the annual cost report. They utilize cost of personnel, equipment, fuel, maintenance, and operational overhead to determine the cost of providing that EMS service. And our current cost report comes in at $23.24. So if we look back at the payer mix, the red area, the Medicaid, is what that applies to in our payer mix. Cost of providing EMS transport, $23.24. The current average Medicaid payments are between $114 and $232. I'm going to jump back again real quick. Medicaid, $114 for BLS, $127 for ALS, and $232 for ALS 2 level. That's what we'll get. The GEMT cost report provides information to get the remainder of the balance of providing our services. I thought this was a really powerful visual. It shows what fees Dubuque currently charges, and it's overlaid with our cost report over the years. So if you look at the red, in 2021, our cost report was $1,112. It jumped to $1,876, dropped by about 10% to $1,707, was pretty stable, $1,725, then again increased for the next 2 years. Those were determined by a third-party provider who determined our service cost that amount to provide. Again, the cost recovery components are important to understand. Some people have potentially questions on why that cost report changes. It changes when we add personnel. It changes when we add equipment, buildings, any improvements that are made. And so when we add staffing, that also impacts the cost report. The summary of some of the high-level investments toward the fire department in the past 3 years include a really impressive list, and I just want to go over them because these impact cost reports as well. 2 fire engines were added. 2 additional fire engines have been approved for fiscal year 2028. We just talked about the price of equipment for the airport. It's very similarly aligned to the fire department. 2 ladder trucks. We're taking delivery of a second ladder truck at the end of this year. 2 ambulances. Cardiac monitors were just approved. And I just want to make a quick point. Fire service delivery has changed. EMS delivery has changed as well over the years. Early on, we fought fires. We've added hazardous materials. We've added EMS, advanced life support, critical care paramedics have been added to some EMS services. Cardiac monitors have changed since the day I started to today. They're so complicated and complex. $50,000 for 1 cardiac monitor. So the department does appreciate those investments in our capabilities and the ability to provide that service to the community. Intubation equipment upgrades, portable radios have been approved. Fire station exhaust systems, which capture the exhaust from suppression vehicles so that it's not sitting around in a station for the firefighters to breathe. Generators for each station, fireboat replacement that's coming next year. Be able to provide service, both fire and ambulance, EMS service out on the water. HVAC we're currently going through at fire headquarters. Fire gear replacement to address some of the PFAS and cancer risks for our firefighters. Small vehicle replacement, command vehicles, fire prevention vehicle. We're going through some bunk room remodels to create individual spaces for our firefighters for their health and wellness. Technical rescue equipment, pre-plan equipment, software, building maintenance, and then we have an upcoming CAD implementation. So again, all of that is an investment from the city to the fire department to provide the services. We reviewed national and regional EMS billing to try to get an idea of what this looks like across the United States and regionally and then in our state. So nationally, the municipal rates for BLS in small towns is anywhere between $500 and $800. That's for the variety of services, all three levels. $1,200 to $2,300 for midsize. For the ALS level, it's $1,200 to $3,600. And then some specialty cares like those critical care ambulances that I was talking about, $3,800 to $4,900. Regionally, there's some great examples out there on different states that are close to us. Illinois, $1,950 to $3,600. Wisconsin, $1,500 to $2,400, and Minnesota, $1,882 to $2,685. And then here in this state, the average for BLS is $855, average for ALS is $1,037, and average for ALS2 is $1,403. A lot of times when we determine, historically when we determine billing rates in a state, we'll do surveys. We'll ask other departments, what are you charging? What are you charging? They compile that information, they try to make a determination. The utilization of a cost report is the closest alignment to using a third party to actually determine the cost of providing that service. Approximately 50 individual departments participated in the Iowa billing survey. And the top three I just wanted to list for your reference. Municipal department that provides 35,000 incident responses, BLS 1390, 1756 for ALS, and 2049 for that ALS2. There's a private reference in there that goes anywhere from, for BLS for 1,300 to 2,000 for ALS, and then a municipal department that provides service to about 1,388 incidents is 1,280 BLS, 2,150 for ALS2. So our recommended EMS adjustments, first is to align with the cost report, and it looks, for BLS 620, actually it is 620 to 1162. The 1162 is just half of that cost report. The cost report just provides the cost of providing this service. It doesn't differentiate between the three levels of service. Another point of clarity here is that many fire departments will charge for BLS non-emergent responses or BLS emergent responses, ALS non-emergent, ALS emergent, and then those advanced level incidents at ALS level 2. ALS rate from 735 to 2324, and ALS2 rate from 1065 to 2324. As mentioned in the memo, the EMS billing adjustments are expected to generate cost recovery at $990 annually. We don't say revenue because we don't really make revenue in anything that we do. It's to recover the costs that are available for us to recover. We're looking at a January through June implementation in 2026 of $495,000. This is an important slide, and I might ask Sam to jump in and add any additional information, but the hardship process is something that we take seriously. Cost recovery strategies are intended to pursue reimbursements for EMS transports by recovering funds that may already be designated for the purpose. A lot of these already exist in insurance policies and insurance by insurance providers. No one in the city and no visitor to the city will ever be denied necessary medical transport or assistance due to the inability to pay or lack of insurance. The fire department is called and the fire department will respond time and time and time again. Any residents or non-residents may submit a waiver request for stating a financial hardship. Personal information and financial status will be required as proof, but persons showing income below the poverty level will qualify for waiver or fee based on hardship. The department receives various requests for hardships. That was a point made. We're going to continue to promote the hardship process. Right now we have a hardship request being processed. And we're looking to make this an electronic version so someone can access that the documentation online. We are here to help. If someone needs that assistance, we want to help them. Any comments or questions on that one? Okay. Again, so with the alignment to the cost report, the ambulance billing adjustment impact has no impact on Medicaid or Medicare. So those first two columns that are in dark, the 52.4% and the 22.5%, we receive the dollars that Medicare and Medicaid provide us. There is no fees or charge back to any of the patients. So that number remains the same. Insurance in-network and out-of-network, 12.7%. The in-network percentage is 7%. There's no change there either. Our in-network insurance provider provides us with what they provide. There's no chargeback. Out-of-network, we would follow what the insurance provider provides. So once the individual makes a claim to their insurance company, it would be important that we follow how that's processed. So it's difficult. There's so many insurance companies out there. We don't know what they reimburse at. We don't know if they're PPO, HMO, but if we're billing at the billing rates that we have now and an insurance company would offer additional funds, we won't receive those because we're billing at that $700 level or that lower level. Private pay is 10.2%, and then workers' comp and other is the 2%. Okay, into fire cost recovery. Fire cost recovery is the fire side of what we just discussed. So we just discussed the billing and the cost recovery on the EMS side. Now we're going to discuss some opportunities on the fire side. And just a point of clarity, the fire department already utilizes cost recovery in our larger hazmat spiller pays type of incidents. Vehicle accidents are one mechanism for fire cost recovery. Additional hazardous conditions are another. Vehicle fires are another. And then special rescue operations. There are other mechanisms in fire cost recovery that could include fire inspections. So other departments and organizations in Iowa and other states utilize different mechanisms based off of the package they want to put forward. So this is a very basic package that we wanted to discuss today. These recommendations are expected to generate approximately 120 in cost recovery at full implementation. So it would take approximately 2 years to get to full implementation on the cost recovery that we can generate. All right, this is a very busy slide, but I want to walk through this with everyone because I think it'll provide a little bit more depth. What this represents is a third-party cost recovery biller's assessment of Dubuque Fire's calls. We've requested 2 of those previous. This is one of theirs. So as far as vehicle accidents with fluid and vehicle accidents with no fluid, Dubuque Fire responds to approximately 230 vehicle accidents. Sometimes there's fluid from radiators or components of the vehicle, and sometimes there's not. MVA with fluids, the percentage that the billing company believes that they can collect based off of history is 90% of these. The amount is $520, and so there's a cost recovery fee, and then that third party charges us a percentage. So we can expect on the MVA with fluids to generate approximately $43,000. The same thing on MVA with no fluids, 115 incidents, 30% collected rate. So that's a lot lower with an expected after billing fee of $14,000. I know vehicle fires was a big conversation point, and I think it was an important one to consider. This information shows that we have approximately 13 vehicle fires. The percentage collected is 20%. That's a very low percentage to collect. And the after billing expected cost recovery is $1,258. They have cost recovery mechanisms for structure fires that are built into insurance plans. It's more of an optics thing not to charge for that. Someone who's experienced a structure fire, it's difficult. But some organizations do bill for that because that mechanism exists. One of the things that they do is they ask the resident to bill their insurance company, and if nothing is received from the insurance company, they waive it off. So they cast a net trying to attempt, to collect those dollars, and then if they're not successful, they waive that off. Hazardous conditions, 184 of those for the city of Dubuque, 60% collection rate, recommended rate at $700, so $61,000 potential after billing fees. And then special rescue responses, those are our water rescues, our high angle, low angle rescues, those more complicated that require more resources and personnel. Expected revenue on that is expected cost recovery is $4,608. So that's how we got our number, working with a third party. Just a summary of the anticipated annual cost recovery, EMS billing adjustments at $990,000, added fire cost recovery at $120,000. Contract renegotiation, our EMS bureau through that party that provides that cost report, they were charging us at 11%. So Chief Janke was able to renegotiate with them, dropping that rate down to 6%, and saving regenerating that $77,000 back to the pool here. Total annual billing improvements, $1.187 million. Okay, the second portion of the presentation is regarding the request for firefighter paramedics. And I'd like to go into that now. Again, another busy slide, so we'll walk through this slowly. Fire department minimum staffing is identified as a top council priority item for 2025 and 2027. The goal is to increase the minimum staffing of our operational template, where all suppression vehicles have a minimum of 3 personnel, and improve days where there's 4 personnel staffing. This will achieve what's in line with NFPA 17 standards that recommend 4 firefighters or 4 personnel on suppression vehicles. So the request in front of you today is a request to hire 5 firefighter paramedic EMT positions, estimated start date of April 2026. And it'll have a June 26 impact on minimum staffing. We have to run those firefighters through a basic firefighter academy before they can be placed on operations. This will increase the department's full-time equivalent from 104 personnel to 109. That's 10 administrative positions. Currently, there's 94 operational positions, and it will increase that to 99. If you look at the graph on the top, that's the current shift staffing. So remember, we're divided into administrative positions. That's that Monday through Friday, 40. And then we have operations, which are the 24-hour shifts. So when I reference shift staffing, that's what I'm referencing. Currently, we have a maximum firefighter paramedic number on each shift of 31, 31, and 32, and a minimum staffing number at 24. When I talk minimum staffing, that's the point at which the fire department will call in for mandatory overtime. That's our hold the line. And that 24 number allows us to staff 2 of the suppression vehicles with 3 people. So 24, we say we're going to staff 2 people. On days we have more, that operational template swings. We might have a 3rd vehicle with 2 people or a 4th vehicle with 2 people. The shift staffing will move from 31 to 33 with this request, balancing all 3 shifts at 33 and moving the needle on minimum staffing from 24 to 26. We will now have a commitment for 4 of our suppression vehicles at 3. 4 of the 7 suppression vehicles. This graph shows our staffing progression if the approval of 5 firefighter paramedics is approved today. You see in fiscal year 22, we went from 92.16, and in fiscal year 23, we had 99.16. This allowed us to place a 3rd ambulance in service. To staff a 3rd ambulance is 2 firefighter paramedics each shift. We've moved from 99 to 102.16, and that was the addition of 2 administrative positions. You see where we moved from 6 to 8. And then again, in fiscal year 25, we received approval to move an additional 2 administrative positions. So we would be at 109.16 with 99 on operations and 10.16 in administration. Second request that we have in front is in fiscal year 2027 to make the request for 9 additional operational firefighter paramedic EMT positions. And this would be tied to a successful SAFER grant application. The request approval under the fiscal year 27 budget with an estimated start date in December or March of 26 or 27. This would move the shift staffing with the added firefighters from 33 to 36 and the minimum staffing from 26 to 29. That accomplishes the goal of all 7 suppression vehicles having a minimum staffing at 3. 36 personnel, so when you look at that, the maximum number, 36 personnel represent all of our fire vehicles having 4. But because we have time off requests for our firefighters, we typically will allow all of our firefighters to bid for their entire next year on vacations, and those known benefit days, there's a system to doing that. And currently, there's 4 slotted positions allowed for vacation for each shift on every single day. Most senior person will bid for the best days, and then it trickles through to our junior members. So that's why the staffing of the fire department is so fluid. Those 4 slots are designated for those known days, and there are no slots designated for the unknown: parental leave, military leave, long-term disability, or the unknown times that they need time off. This is what our staffing would move to upon a successful SAFER grant. It would move to the 9 firefighter, it would add the 9 firefighter, paramedic, EMT positions. Okay, SAFER grant explained. This is important. Federal government offers opportunities for fire departments in 3 different areas every year. One's fire prevention, one's in AFG, or Assistance to Firefighter grant, and then one is in SAFER grant. And SAFER grant is specifically designated and designed to fully fund and assist in funding fire departments, increasing the number of firefighters to help communities meet the industry minimum standards, to attain the 24-hour staff and provide adequate fire protection. That's aligned with the NFPA 17 standard of the 4 firefighters. The notice of the program goal is to enhance local fire departments' abilities to comply with staffing, response, and operational standards established by the NFPA 1710. Notice of funding opportunity for this SAFER program goes out about 30 days before the grant actually opens. So all the information we're providing to you is referenced from the 2025 SAFER grant. Typically, they stay the same as far as what their requirements are, but I have seen where they've changed. There's been SAFER grants that have been released with a 0 cost match from the city and fully funded from the government. The SAFER grant has a 3-year period of performance and a 180-day recruitment period. I inadvertently listed 90 days on the memo, so I needed to correct that. It's 180 days. All that means is once you receive notification of a successful grant, you've been approved. It's pretty exciting, but you got to get to work. You got to bring those individuals onto the fire department, so they give you 6 months to bring them in. You don't want to go any further than that recruitment period because your clock starts ticking as far as the funds and the availability. Grant funding in year 1 is 75% with a city match of 25%. Grant funding in year 2 is the same, and grant funding in year 3 is 35% grant funded with a 65% match. The anticipated release of the 2026 Notice of Funding Opportunity is July or August of next year, but obviously with this federal shutdown that we just incurred, that is difficult to predict, so it makes the numbers a little bit more difficult to predict. Targeted hire date of these individuals would be December of 2026, and an impact of staffing would be of March and May of 27. Just a visual to show you the cost of 5 firefighter, paramedic, EMT positions, and the cost of 9 personnel or 9 firefighter, paramedic positions. All right, this graph, again, another busy graph, but what it represents is the impact starting in fiscal year 26 of the 5 firefighter paramedics. Obviously, we're in the middle of a fiscal year, so it's difficult to do the 12 months. We've got to cut it to the time that we're predicting we would be able to hire them. And then the impact of what the grant would have on the 9 firefighters in total. So it walks down the anticipated costs all the way to fiscal year 2032, where it starts to have an impact on the city as far as the responsibility for paying for those firefighter paramedics in fiscal year 23 fiscal year 2032 and fiscal year 2033. That's an important number. The federal government doesn't want to put cities in positions where they can't fund those, so that's good conversation to have, and then the time to make sure that we have the mechanisms in place to cover those. The department sits in a position where a successful grant would bring us to those national fire standards of the 3 people on a vehicle at all times, and then working more percentage of days to 4 firefighters. So it will have an impact on 4 firefighters on suppression vehicles. We just don't know what that impact is. All right, that was a lot of information and a lot in front of you, so we're prepared to answer some questions that you have on our proposal.
Thanks a lot, Chief. I appreciate all that information. There will be plenty of discussion and questions, I'm sure. Before we do that, though, I do have a question right off the bat about the strategic plan that you put in front of us. This is actually something that is coming up later on the agenda, but it absolutely applies to this discussion, I think. And I had a very specific question about it. So you did a SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Those are pretty common when you do a strategic plan. Sometimes they all come out differently. Sometimes they're a little more balanced. This one was remarkably off balance. I mean, it struck me so powerfully that I couldn't stop looking at it. The number of threats that were identified throughout the strategic plan process, and this was by you as a leadership team, by your firefighters, by community members. I mean, it's a bunch of different stakeholders that are involved in this process, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So I maybe I'll have you comment first, just on that, the number of threats that were identified, and then I might have some follow-up questions before I open it up to everybody else.
Absolutely, Mayor. So it's good to see or hear the process that we took to identify those threats. And the presentation of that strategic plan was just a walk on what we did and how long it took. So 6 months, external stakeholder feedback, internal stakeholder feedback. And then we worked as a senior staff to identify those threats. And really what that is we sit in the room with a whiteboard and we talk. What are some of the things that are coming down the pipe after reviewing the external feedback and the internal feedback? What are some of the things that we should worry about? And one big conversation was some of the youth of what we're hiring. We've turned over 30% of our department in the last 3 to 5 years. And so executive level leadership, training our company officers to assume that responsibility, amongst many. There were 17 different threats that we identified. That's what that exercise is meant to do. Using technology to advance our services, the threats of recruitment and retention in the fire department, that will continue. The threats of a changing requirement of our community, increased EMS delivery, changing what EMS delivery looks like. We're seeing some success in advocate programs where we put individuals on SUVs in different cities and states, and they can go reduce the number of the hyper-utilizers, making sure that they connect with their hospital practitioner, those kind of things that were identified as threats.
Thank you for that. So a specific follow-up to it. My immediate takeaway from this was just the incredible stressors that face your entire department. So especially the people who are, doing the day-to-day work. And to me, that it sort of spoke to the need for the positions that you're talking about. Is that an accurate way to equate this? I mean, it just seems like because these threats are things that, when you go through them, there's a lot in here, but one of the themes that I see is the level of stress and impact on the individual firefighter in having to deal with the day-to-day operations of doing all these things, and how this, I think it was really in line for me with the discussion that we've been having as a community about this need to get to the 4 firefighters on those suppression vehicles and the reasons for it. It's because, we see these threats and they're very, very real. And it seems like that's creating a high level of stress in the environment that you all have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. Great observation. Not only that, but with our external and internal feedback, they were aligned as well on some of the things that they identified. Stressors, we talked about the evolution of fire service and EMS service delivery. It has changed in the time that I've been in the fire service, 30 years, from basic life support to critical skills that are needed for surgical airways, some of the complexities of the incident. There's no one for us to call. It's 911, there's not a 912. We have to handle what's presented to us, and that does create stress for our firefighters, who are extraordinarily talented, gifted individuals. You provide them with the right tools and equipment and provide them with the staffing, they're gonna do some amazing things. You hear about it very frequently, from technical rescue incidents to hazardous material incidents, but that does bear a burden. To make sure that they know to precise levels drug calculations and cardiac monitoring and defibrillation, and then hazardous material, is it acid, is it a base, what the chemistry is of that, gas leaks, fires, all that, flow paths, building construction. The books that we have to know, you could stack them up and they would be my height. So yes, that's a great point. Mental health is something that the department has been very aggressive in addressing with the support of the council. We've got peer support teams that we use, a peer fitness team for the physical health. We've got follow-ups that we provide to our firefighters after critical incidents that they're dealing with. And so we're very thankful, but that observation is spot on. There's a lot that our firefighters deal with on a daily basis, and we do appreciate that continued support.
Thanks, Chief. All right, yeah, Ms. Wathen.
I'll just start off. I have some drafted statements that I wanted to make sure I included, so I will read them. But as part of reading our agenda and all that you included, thank you for the timeliness of this, partnered with your strategic plan. It really is meaningful in a way that I can connect the two so well. As I tried to do some reading, I guess I heard somebody say in the community that this is double taxation. And I just want, as somebody who bills in healthcare personally and has for decades, that is not at all the situation. So much so that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, actually in March of 2024, did a 162-page document, Ground Ambulance and Patient Billing Advisory Committee. I mean, this is a national level issue, and we are not recovering the cost of what we do. This is not double taxation. This is recovering the cost of what we do. So just to point out, within the fire department strategic plan, it was noted that we need to prepare for increasing demands, as we just talked. With the aging demographics, specifically here in Dubuque having a greater population density and increased complexity of services, as you spoke, over the next 20 years, it was stated that this trend could translate into a 15 to 20% increase in call volume, even as an underestimate. With consideration for growth, it could be double what we see today. Threats to our service, as Mayor Kavanaugh focused on, it really struck for me too. The threats to our service, just for those at home, that were included in the strategic plan we'll get into more later, listed technology changes, our changing legal and litigious environment, the need for preparedness for complex and catastrophic events, such as chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, explosive readiness, cyber attacks, weather events, the requirements to follow compliance and external mandates of bodies, OSHA, government and state federal regulatory mechanisms, the need for consideration for the health and wellness and safety of our firefighters, and that I think we're focusing on as paramount. We are not running a business. We are running a city. As part of that responsibility, we should never leave money on the table for our residents. And the fact of the matter is that insurance companies and the government provide reimbursement. It is a fiduciary responsibility to collect these insurance cost recovery mechanisms. When the taxpayers of Dubuque are entitled to fees paid by insurance companies for the work of our fire and EMS, we should enact cost recovery. We are speaking of services provided by highly trained public servants who come to work every day and put their lives on the line to take care of us. There is a reimbursement charge that is appropriate, and in fact, it would be wrong to leave it on the table in the way that you have presented it. We have to practice due diligence and bill appropriately so that the services offered by our brave men and women in fire EMS are collected for our residents. This is not a game of words or headlines. This is about the well-being of our residents and fiscal responsibility. You have done an amazing job since you have come on with the colleagues that you work with, all of you, in presenting data to us. And that helps me to understand how I need to support you. I really look forward to budget, not just this decision-making process, but how we move forward to support fire EMS in the future. I really look forward to talking with everyone tonight more to learn what your thoughts are as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, go ahead.
Thank you for all of this. I had a lot of reservations when I first started reading this, and I spent some time looking around outside of Dubuque and discovered that this is not an uncommon thing to seek cost recovery for some things. And the word that comes back to me, it's basically from the hazardous materials federal legislation that defines a responsible party. And most of these things have a responsible party, and that person or entity should have some skin in the game of paying for what we're trying to do here. So I do support this pretty wholeheartedly after discovering how many cities are doing it and looking specifically at what it can do to take a little bit of the fiscal pressure off of the citizens that aren't using the fire service every day, and putting a little bit more of it on the responsible party for some of these incidents that occur. I had a question early on. I think I've answered it with some internet research, but the Office of Inspector General, a long time ago, I was still at the fire department, carved out an exception for municipalities that provide ambulance service to allow you to not collect copay from Medicare and Medicaid patients. And we opted to not do that. Is that still the case, Sam? Can I ask?
At this point, EMS Bureau Chief Sam Janicki, Mayor, Council, Mike. We are at this time collecting that copay. So Medicare is an 80% reimbursement by Part B, I believe, for Medicare. And then most Medicare users have a supplemental Part D that they use for that 20%, or they pay that out of pocket. And we do currently collect that.
Okay, thank you. The other concern I had is that we, in policy, create a threshold where fees kick in. We experience a lot of well-intentioned non-calls where you arrive on scene, there's no injury, there's no fluid spill, there's maybe you help with some traffic mitigation and other things, but you really don't provide much of a level of service. I don't want to just get to a point where we're making citizens afraid to call for fear of the cost, and I know you're very conscious of that. And so I just want to make sure that well-intended, unfounded call isn't generating a fee for somebody, because the person who's responsible for the collision is really the person that called. I used to deal with that once in a while as in Sam's position when I was there. Someone who'd been turned over for collection for non-payment of an ambulance bill years ago, and now their son is looking for their first car loan on their own, and they're getting denied because this collection agency owns that account from way back when. Well, I didn't call that ambulance. Why should I have to pay for it? Well, how long do you want your son to lay in the ditch while we look for you to see if it's okay? That was just a ridiculous argument from the get-go. But often the responsible party wasn't really responsible for that. I just want to make sure that you're thinking of that as you craft the policy where it kicks in. Third point I want to make, of many, healthcare finance is probably the biggest train wreck in the United States today. It's worse than air service by far. It is so convoluted and complex. For every one of us that touches the patient, or cooks a meal for the patient, or cleans up after the patient, or prescribes medicine for the patient, or fills a prescription, there are 3 or 4 people in the hierarchy of that reimbursement system that are deciding whether you can or not, whether you should or not. We've had insurance companies say, well, we didn't pre-authorize that ambulance transport when our patient went through the windshield last week. And how could you? How could you even ask such a stupid question? I do remember an attorney that was asking pretty ridiculous questions. I finally got pretty frustrated with him. I said, I hope your mom didn't mortgage the farm to pay for that legal education. And ended up talking to Barry about that a little later. But anyhow, those concerns are out there, and they're challenging all of the time. And EMS fees they are what they are. They're proportionately too high, they're proportionally too low. There's cost shifting to make it all work, and that happens at every single level of healthcare in the world. One of the biggest challenges for EMS provision is that the reimbursement is mostly based on the ride, not on the care. And it couldn't be less about the ride anymore. I get frustrated. Every night in the news, you hear about people rush to the hospital. Hardly anybody's rushed to the hospital anymore. People are taken to the hospital after some pretty good assessments and treatments begin. And it's just the system begins earlier. The system begins at the patient's site of injury or illness, not in the ER. And our reimbursement system still doesn't address that. So I think everything about the EMS fee reorganization and restructuring is accurate, perhaps late, but it's absolutely justifiable and absolutely real in the world of healthcare finance. On the fire side, I think you're on the right track to make things better. We've been collecting from responsible parties for hazardous material spills forever. That was one of my jobs back before I left the fire department, which was 20 years ago, to organize how to bill for that and how to get that recovery. And it was backed up by federal law that clearly made the spiller, the owner of the material, responsible for it pretty much cradle to grave when it gets spilled in the streets. So we got good at that in a hurry. So there's nothing I don't like about this. In fact, it gives us the opportunity to accelerate the growth of the fire staff that we all desperately want to get done. We're going to talk a little bit more about the strategic plan, but it's awesome. It's really well done. I couldn't be prouder of the team, and that happens every single day. So many things have gotten better since I've left the department. It had no cause and effect, by the way, folks. Things are already getting better, and they continued on that arc, and I couldn't be prouder of that. It's almost a parental thing. You like to see your children do better than you could do. Sam, I'm really proud of you personally, seeing where you've gone in a pretty short time and what you're doing with that. Makes me proud of what I did, but it makes me happy that you're doing more and reaching farther. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Jones. Mr. Sprank, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very complicated. Healthcare insurance and billing is just insanely complicated. I appreciate all the data that you've given us to review. I guess my one question is when I'm looking at all that, slide 16 about all the numbers and the accidents, what happens if we have less than those accidents? What happens when you don't have 115 motor vehicles with fluid or motor vehicles with no fluid? Because it sounds like the next 3 years, if we approve this, those 9 positions through that SAFER grant, we have to match so much of that funding. What happens if we don't hit those target numbers, which is the worst to say that we're planning on 567 accidents to happen?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing it up. In the last 6 years, the fire department's incident count has increased by 30%. So year over year, it could be expected that the call volume will increase. Also, that alignment, as far as the incidents, should stay fairly consistent, but there would be some changes. If we just had a really great initiative on reducing vehicle accidents, or if tow companies, cleaned up fluids and didn't call the fire department, the vehicle collisions could decrease. It would ebb and flow with the cost recovery estimates.
Okay, all right. And then I guess this is kind of a question more for you, for the city manager. So if we've kind of been putting this off for like 10 years, why weren't we at least charging some of those services just based on the COLA metrics, the cost of living? Why weren't we just doing that then? Like every year, like we knew every year it would go up like 15%. Like why weren't we just implementing that then? So
unless I completely misunderstand this, so we have been collecting it on the GMTs. It's just we haven't been increasing the cost to the insurance and the other co-payers. And so I guess I'll take the fault for that. Okay. But we have been collecting the money on the GMTs.
Okay.
Right. Am I correct here?
Yeah, and just a little additional piece of information is, I told you about times where we would use state surveys to try to figure out what the cost of an ambulance transport was. The departments, and many departments, utilize the maximum payout of the in-network insurance company as that metric. We are at that same level. So really this presentation and bring this forward to the city manager, it's well-timed. We see where we could have had opportunities to potentially gain, but it's a difficult topic to bring up and to understand what the impacts are More and more organizations are doing this. They're aligning with that cost recovery concept. And so just to understand that we aligned our billing with the in-network, what the max, what they would pay. And so things have changed quite a bit.
That was all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Resnick, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So a lot of good information, well presented. Congratulations. So I appreciate it. A lot of questions were answered. And if I could ask a few more. First of all, I was kind of surprised because I was reading this. It's on the website. It's in 2021, October of 2021, we were internationally accredited. And it's only one of 300 in the world to get this. It's top of the line. And we are very proud of the fire department. We had 91 employees, uniform operational personnel to be specific. And we were at 91, and we had a plan to put one in every year, and we're about there. I guess we have 94 now. And so we've been keeping up as far as this plan back in 2001. And I wanted to just, it said that there is, we're talking about increasing staff levels, and they talked about bringing the total uniform operational personnel count to 95, and we're at 94. And that was for this year. So you have explained some of the reasons why we do need to increase that, some new information since 2021. So I appreciated that information. The other term that is an unfortunate term is that the department initiated an aggressive overhiring process. Well, I know then it explains what that is, but it just doesn't. Who wants to be overhiring at this time? If you could tell our residents what that means.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for that question. So we have an approved FTE. Those are the positions that are approved through the budgetary process. And because we were entering a challenging time for recruitment and retention, and to address that, our civil service lists are established once a year. And so we have a bucket of employees that we can grab immediately when that civil service list is published. So we requested the ability to hire more candidates, knowing that it takes 6 months to on-ramp these individuals and train them to the level. So we were being predictive in that overhire strategy, meaning that we knew that we had potential retirements coming up, or we knew military deployments were forthcoming. And so we tried to balance that and keeping that number right at the approved FTE. But in order to do that, we had to make that request and define it as what it was. And so we were appreciative of that, and I think it helped to maintain the staffing, where it is.
And we did, one of our goals and priorities is fire department staffing increases. It doesn't say 5. So I understand, it's quite the interesting way that you have to deal with figuring out how many we need to fulfill this. And I think your memos and your presentation did a nice job. One thing that worries me is that we have 15 top and high priorities. And if we were simply going to try to just ask more money from our residents to do that, it's going to be an amazing amount of money that we're going to have to try and ask for, but tell me if I got this right. The city manager can already authorize to adjust these fees. It's almost, you said $990,000 that we'd expect from the ambulance, EMS, and hazardous from that group. And generally, again, I don't like user fees because they're regressive, whereas our taxation on our residences and businesses is progressive. So people who have more money generally pay more taxes, and they express that by the housing or the businesses they have. So I generally like that. But what you're saying is, and here's my question, actually it's not a user fee, it's a user insurance who's going to pay this. So it's not going to be, we're going to try very hard that these we're just catching up with fees that the insurance that they have is going to pay for. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, that's correct. On the fire recovery fees, that is correct.
Right, and my question, so that's amount of money, which didn't even need city council action. City manager can do that. Did I get that right from the store?
Ambulance, yeah.
All right, and then, but the city council has to approve the fire recovery fees. Now, do insurance, I've never had a fire, and I've never looked at my policy well enough to understand it. I just got everything I needed, but do insurance companies also have insurance reimbursement for fires as well then?
They do. That is correct.
So this $120,000 is not coming from we're not going to worry about that as far as our budget in the spring? That's going to come to you directly?
The third-party fire cost recovery facilitator will facilitate that, and that money would be received on the revenue side.
Right, okay.
Very similar to the GMT.
All right, so I guess those are some of my questions, that the insurance companies are going to reinforce this. And you mentioned why it's important to have 5. So I guess, are we going to be actually getting what we need, which is these 5 right now, and we're going to be having mostly insurance companies pay for them? Because it says that we're going to be bringing in $990,000 just with insurance payer fees on the ambulance EMS side, and these 5 new employees are $550,000. So it doesn't sound like it's going to require any more taxpayer money. Am I getting that all right?
I believe you've summarized that perfectly.
Okay. Well, that's the first thing I did perfectly today, though. So, but I appreciate that, because it is difficult. Mr. Sprank mentioned it. Ms. Wethel mentioned the reimbursement in the medical is difficult. So I will give myself a break having to try to understand, all this situation. But it seems like this is a really good thing. Of course, more firefighters and well-trained and caring like we have are very good for our city, and it isn't going to be costing more as far as on the taxpayer side. Am I correct that way?
So the only correction I would make for that is if we go to the chart on, let me try and find the one where it shows the years of funding. Yes, that chart, thank you. You'll see that that's the case through fiscal year 2030. But then after that, there will be cost on the general fund property taxes to support all these positions once the 3-year SAFER grant is over.
But that doesn't affect the 5 that we're talking about today. These are only on the future hires. It's not about, because I know you're planning to do the SAFER grant, but the monies that we're going to be getting from the SAFER grant are for the additional hires. Right. And so we're only talking about the 5 today.
Oh, you're right.
So I'm just asking to make sure I'm right or perfect still.
Yeah, yes, you are correct.
Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate that because I think it's very important, as I mentioned, in this time for our citizens. They feel overwhelmed about many things. And so I appreciate reading the story in the Telegraph Herald. It brought up some interesting points, and Mr. Jones was talking. I agree, fire suppression should be tax money, but this is different, and I've thought differently through this because of your presentation and your answers tonight. So I feel much better that this is a win-win for our citizens, our residents. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms.
Mr.
Farmer.
Mayor. So I want to just, if I can go back to this chart that you talked about, Mike, the funding and cost recovery breakdown. And it has a little under EMS billing rate and fire cost recovery, 2.5%. Is that something that every year you're going to do a COLA, a cost of living adjustment on these prices? Or if not, would that be something you would consider in order to continue with the benefit to the taxpayers?
So every year we'll do an analysis of what our costs are that need to be recovered, and we just created an estimate that it would go up 2.5%. We don't know if it'll go up 1% or 5%.
Okay, so this chart is 2% per annum down to 2033. Okay. All right, and also I just wanted to thank you. This has just been an outstanding and very thorough and very educational presentation. And I also kudos for the fire plan, strategic plan, because I think this is actually a template. It's not only for the fire department, it's for the city. And as you're looking at that main list of all of those threats, if you will, this applies to us. It applies to every business, every homeowner, anybody that's involved in an organization, whether it's profit or nonprofit, especially when you take a look at the ambiance of the technology that's surrounding us and all of the risk that come to and here I am a proponent of AI applications, as you so know, but there is cybersecurity and other kinds of things to be concerned about. And it's really to demystify that, but also to learn about how to better manage. And so thank you for recognizing that. And then also thank you for recognizing, as we are moving forward with electric vehicles, what it will take to learn how to deal with that on behalf of the residents. But I concur with pretty much everything that has been said, and I just wanted to express my thanks for you helping the citizens rest easy and sleep well at night, because I think that's what's important to them, and public safety is our number one priority, and you have really stepped up. And it is with great appreciation for your leadership and your senior leader team, and the fact that you are so cognizant and so aware of the municipality here is just really something that makes me smile every time I see you, because I think it's important for all that you do, and you give me comfort knowing that the citizens are also sleeping well at night. So thank you very much. And again, I just concur with all the wonderful comments about this and all the questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farber. Yeah, Ms. Rousseau.
Thank you. On slide 19, you talk about the NFP standard of the 3 people per vehicle. And I wondered if you might be able to talk to our residents and us about, one, the benefit to the firefighter to be on a 3-person vehicle, and to the recipient of the services when we know that there's going to be at least 3 people on the vehicle.
Yes, great question, and thanks for asking that. So effective response force is a terminology that we use very regularly when we analyze our response. So if we talked about a structure fire, an effective response force to mitigate that structure fire, 17 people. You can bring 17 people in 10 vehicles, right? Or you can bring them in lesser number of vehicles and maintain the resiliency for providing service to the remainder of the city. That, in a sense, is just a summary of what it does to increase the staffing on one suppression vehicle. Another example is on EMS calls. If we have 2 individuals on an engine and 2 individuals on a medic, but our effective response force for managing a cardiac arrest is 5, 6, 7 people, you have to bring more vehicles to that incident. One big measure is how to get the first unit on the scene and stop whatever's occurring, or that first arrival. And so we're distributed very well to do that, to accomplish that. Our stations are strategically located, and we have a benchmark response time of 6 minutes for EMS and 6 minutes and 20 seconds for fire. So we can get that first person on the scene. It's the remaining complement to get on the scene that come from different fire stations. Chief Josh Napper did a fantastic job in our external strategic plan of actually setting up the room as our stations are located in the city, and that he demonstrated visually of a response to a large gas leak or a structure fire, cardiac arrest, and what that impact is to the city. We are the only municipal fire department for an hour. We have a fantastic community of volunteer and paid on-call responders. They're facing limitations as well. For us to get on scene and make an impact immediately with the right numbers is critically important. We need to stop whatever's happening very quickly, and our firefighters are very good at doing what they do. That extra person or that extra 2 people on a suppression vehicle is important to achieve that. Does that make, hopefully that is.
Yes, that's very helpful. And lastly, threat number 4 talks about the challenges of getting these people. So how are we going to staff up to get all of these people with all the challenges that we have?
Is that a recruitment question?
Yeah.
Yes. So I think the strategy of asking for individuals now and then again later is one of the ways to address that. We currently have an open civil service process, meaning our applications are currently open. We've asked to leave that open for extended period of time. We currently have 30 individuals that are on that list. So if this is approved, we'll communicate that we'll be closing that list and we'll work through the civil service process. It's that way. It includes our recruitment and retention. It includes our marketing. It includes going out to these high schools and colleges and educating about the wonderful job that being a firefighter for the city of Dubuque is, talking about some of the benefits and schedules and the resources. You've seen us change our image in the last 3 to 5 years. We've gone to different design on our trucks. We've gone to different designs for our fire gear. I kind of relate it to like the New York Yankees. When they change their uniform and they come out on the field and they're looking a little different, it kind of appeals to that younger generation. That's what we're doing. We're evolving and changing. We're communicating what the great things are that our firefighters do for the community, the great things that being a public servant for the city of Dubuque is, and that impacts the recruitment. It's still a concern, but we're hitting it head on through analysis like our strategic plan, our annual reports, our recruitment teams, the wonderful job that our prevention bureau does in recruiting and working at events like the high schools and, and just educating.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rousseau. I'm actually going to add to something you just said because I think it's more of a point for us than it is for you because it's a budgetary point that we need to make. Part of recruiting is also making sure that when the recruits are there, they have facilities that work for them. They're modern, they're updated, they're doing the job that they need to do. That was something that struck me when I was able to take the tour on September 11th this year and talk about the types of facilities that you're working with. There's some stuff that's very aged in your department. I mean, there are things that have been around for a long time. We're an old city. We've had an old fire department. Things need to continue to be updated. So I think it speaks to the importance of updating the buildings and facilities and the gear that you need. I mean, you mentioned the uniforms. It wasn't just about looking like the Yankees. It was also, these are uniforms that aren't making people sick. They're things that are actually working better for you as firefighters. And I think that's important too, because that's a budgetary point, is that if we want to recruit a top-notch modern force, we have to have top-notch modern facilities to be able to do it. And it's hard. You mentioned, Mr. Resnick, the 15 different priorities that we have. You're right, it's a lot. And there are hard choices ahead, trying to figure out how we're going to pay for all these things, because that's what we're doing here. But that's why we're here. So I want to make just a quick summary, because I'm trying to keep it straight in my own head. We're actually talking about 4 different things tonight. And tell me if I'm wrong about this, but we're talking about new ambulance rates. We're talking about new fire cost recovery fees. We're talking about 5 new firefighters now and 9 new firefighters later. The first one, the ambulance rates, is done. Our city manager had the ability to do that and did it. So increase the ambulance rates. This is more of an informational thing saying, hey, we did this, because it ties in with everything else. The next 2 things we need to vote on tonight. That's what we're actually here for, and the motion on the table is to approve these 2 things. Adding fire cost recovery fees is the first, and then approving 5 new firefighter positions right now. Those are the 2 things we need to vote on. Then there's the final thing, which is the 9 new firefighters, and that requires a successful grant application through the SAFER grant, and then future funding questions and decisions that we're going to need to make as a council. And actually, council years ahead are going to need to make. Did I summarize that correctly?
You did.
Okay, all right, thank you. Was it perfect? Because I'm kind of in a competition here with Mr. Resnick.
It was almost perfect.
Almost perfect? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question, though, since you brought it up.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the additional 9 we're not voting for those additional 9, even if, it didn't say that if we get the grant, we're going to have an additional 9. It has no mention of that, correct?
I would say that is correct.
That's correct. You're
Tonight, we're not
not approving the
voting on-
additional 9 tonight. You're just being
Yes.
We're just notifying you that our intent is to request them through the budget cycle conditional on receiving the SAFER grant.
Just a notification. Okay. That perfected that one. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. All right, I have a few questions. How many incidents do we have a year? You have some slides here that show that. What?
Yeah, just under 8,000.
Okay. So 8,000, give or take. So is that generally then, I'm looking at, and I know this is the thing that we don't need to vote on tonight, but I just have a question just to clarify in my mind and maybe help some people in the public too. On slide number 11, I believe it is, the national and regional EMS billing comparisons. Does that bring us generally in line with, like the cost comparisons, I guess? I mean, are we generally in line, or are we charging much higher than other municipalities, lower with our new fees that we're charging for ambulance rates?
Yeah, we attempted to provide that information. Looking at the state survey, it gives us the population. That's why I provided the top 3 for Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the comparison for Iowa. As far as across, the states, I think it puts us right in the middle. We're on the higher to, middle range of what we'd be billing. But the key here, Mayor, is to align it with the cost report, which is the third-party analysis.
Right.
Not the systems of trying to determine what's the fair, what's the reimbursement rate. That's the piece that I really wanted to communicate. It could go up in years, it could go down in years, but it just continues to align with the cost of our service.
Yeah. That's a great point. And one of the reasons I asked the question too, I mean, we need to make this work for Dubuque. We're in a unique position here. You said it, we're an hour away from any other major municipality. We need to make this work for Dubuque. Whether it is in line with Cedar Rapids or Rockford or, anywhere else. I think it needs to work for us. And I think you're doing it based on data. So I appreciate that. The amount of the cost recovery that is expected, so when you talk about the cost recovery, and I guess we could put both the ambulance fees and the fire suppression fees into this. When you do the analysis and you're making the guesstimate on what we can expect from this, you took into account in that what we're going to receive from insurance, what we might not receive from insurance. I mean, you took those variables into account, right, as you made those predictions, more or less?
We did, yes. So for the insurance reimbursement, specifically for EMS, insurance accounts for, is it 12.7? Where's that slide? So 12 roughly 13%. Of that 13%, 7% is in network. 5% then would be out of network. So what I did is I was doing that calculation is I basically assumed that 7% would be rate restricted, or we wouldn't see any sort of change. So in the graph that's on the screen right now, everything that's within those bold lines, so Medicare, the 2 forms of Medicare, 2 forms of Medicaid, and then Wellmark is the in-network provider. Those you won't see any sort of increase, or we won't see any sort of increase in the cost recovery or revenue received. It'd only be those that are out of network for insurance.
Okay. So our estimates, basically, to help us pay for these additional firefighters, are estimates that are based on all those different variables. It's not just a wacky guess of something. I mean, you took a lot into account here as you're doing this.
And so this, the slide that's on the screen right now is my analysis using the data that was provided by the billing company. They also did their own independent analysis, and that's the number we used was the 990, came back from the billing company. Mine was slightly more conservative at 837,000, but somewhere in between there, I believe, is where we will truly end up.
All right. Thanks, Chief. And I like what you just pointed out, that it's a little more conservative, too. I think that's helpful to be able to hear. Okay. Why have we never done, you answered the question of, because Mr. Sprank asked it, why haven't we increased these fees over the last 10 years? We were kind of going with what the insurance was dictating, and we kind of just stuck with it. Whereas now we're realizing maybe we don't need to just stick with it. We can actually do some of these other increases. But why have we never done and if you speak to that first if you want, because I'm going to ask a second part to the question.
So, I took over the position in FY 2020, in the heart of COVID. And at that point, we were just in the first year of GEMT reimbursement. And that was the first year of doing cost reports. So we were looking back at the FY18 and FY19 data and submitted that as a cost report. And I know it was something that I worked with city manager on at that point. Is as I stepped into that position, my predecessor had done those cost reports. I identified maybe some areas where there could be there were opportunities for increased revenue that could be realized within that GEMT program. Because of some shared costs that weren't included in that cost report. But really, that was the first year that we did any sort of cost report. And at that point, it was we were internally using a local accounting firm to do that cost report. But really, that was kind of the turning point for us to even understand or realize how much does it cost us to provide per transport the ambulance service that we're providing. And now over the last 5 years of doing cost reports and the last 3 years using a third party to do those, I feel like we've really honed that process, and we now can, with more accuracy, define what it truly costs us to provide that service, and so with more confidence can say, okay, we feel comfortable billing at this rate because we know this is truly what it costs us for that service. So I would say that's why the evolution in the way in which we've billed.
Yeah, that's super helpful context right there. Thank you. Why are we just now talking about building for the fire cost recovery? Why is this now just coming up and we haven't done that before in a larger, I understand we've done that for hazardous materials, but the rest of the things that we're doing that are pretty brand new for us as a community, why are we just talking about this now?
You know, in the state of Iowa, it seems to be a slower adaption to the fire cost recovery. It's well known, I came from the state of Illinois, and it was discussed amongst fire departments very readily. I don't know. I don't, if it's okay, I have an answer that I don't know why. I think it's a really neutral package that we're presenting. I believe the vehicle accident piece will be the big piece. Great conversation and discussion on the other components as well, but yeah, so maybe we'll see a trend change. I know that we recently participated in a Chiefs chat group, and they presented the question, and there was a lot of interest. I can say there's a lot of interest in the state of what application, what approach, what policies.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I think the answer both, I don't know, and it's kind of just slow in Iowa, but in other places it's not so slow, I think is a helpful thing for us to know there. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, please,
I just
Mr.
want to
Resnick,
make one comment in that in 2020, when the gentleman was just hired, Mr. Van Billigen and the council, I think you were part of that, made a special effort to keep fees and costs down. Not just, I mean, for our entire populace, all the residents, including things. So he was trying to keep things from shocking, it was a shock enough, COVID. So I mean, I do remember the city manager mentioning several times that he says now is not the time to do that. Yeah. So, I mean, that could be part of it, but that was a few years ago. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point too. And as much as people like to say, hey, let's just forget about COVID, it still has effects. I mean, we're still feeling the effects of how we dealt with things then and kind of catching up to it. So, absolutely.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
I'd also make the point that the GEMT reimbursement was brand new in 2020, and it was kind of a lifeboat for struggling EMS agencies across the country that were already struggling without COVID, and COVID was a death blow for many of them. So it was some new revenue, and most likely to a city council at that time or to a city manager would have been, hey, look, we've increased our revenue in EMS transport service without having to raise our fees because of GEMT, which was kind of an apology for the Title 19 Medicaid reimbursement being so incredibly low versus the cost of providing the service.
All right.
The other point I'd make is there's a little bit of a division in thinking of the cost of preparedness, which is the cost of the guys sitting in the firehouses with the good equipment and the training and everything behind them. That's kind of different than the cost of the response. That cost is there whether you have calls or not. And this is just a way to cut into that enormous fiscal bite a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I mean, I hope that plenty of people got a chance to listen to this conversation and see this presentation and read through these documents. I mean, this is a very well thought out proposal. It really is. And it makes a ton of sense with the demand that we have here, and then demand here. And this demand from this council is based on the feedback that we've received from you and your department, is that we need more firefighters. We need more people to do this job and to do it well, to be more in line with what the national standards are, and to just do it better, to be able to provide the better services. I think that demand is there, but we have to figure out how to make it happen. And we can we can raise taxes like crazy. I mean, that's an option. We can go out and just start jacking up the tax rate for years and years and years. I don't think that's going to make anybody happy. Or we can look for some other creative ways to get this done. I think you've come up with a proposal that makes a ton of sense based on this need and this demand that we have. So as far as what is in front of us tonight, I'm absolutely looking forward to voting for this approval, for the fire cost recovery fees, adding those, and then also the 5 firefighter positions. In fact, I'm excited that we get to do it now at this point. I mean, this is something that you've really, I mean, we just made this a very specific goal this past September, and you've spent some serious time as a department working on this, and sincerely appreciate that. Because you could just be kind of sitting there saying, oh, how are we going to pull this off? But instead, you went straight to the numbers, and you put this together in the form of a proposal that has answered almost every question that we've asked here. So I really think that it's a great proposal for the community of Dubuque. I think it's a great proposal to be able to get the firefighters in place that we need. And then it also puts us in a great spot to be able to take that next step, which is number 4 on my list here, of looking at that SAFER grant and trying to add even more firefighters way faster than I ever thought we were going to be able to. Honestly, when we made this goal in September, I was thinking, well, great, maybe the next city council after I'm long gone will be able to actually think about this, because it's going to take that long to figure out how to put that funding in place. But if we can pull this off, I mean, that's fantastic. So I'm voting for this. I think it's great. I think this is a really good step forward in the right direction, and I'm happy that we have this opportunity tonight to do it. All right. If there's no further discussion, which I think was very thorough, we had a great discussion here. Thank you, Chief and Chief, for being here. Really appreciate the presentation and everything that was here. So the motion here on the table is to receive and file and approve. So Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 3 is award of public improvement construction contract, Comiskey Park Phase 2 redevelopment project.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Sprank?
I motion that we receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second.
We got a motion by Sprank. I'll go with a second from Jones. Mike, please.
Thank you. City Engineer Gus Ahoyas is recommending City Council approval to select Shive Hattery as the consultant for the historic federal building mechanical, electrical, plumbing, or MEP systems assessment and new systems design, and authorize the city manager to negotiate a consultant agreement with Shive Hattery. Currently, several systems are nearing the end of their useful life, including the cooling tower, 2 air handlers, pneumatic control systems, boilers, and about 50% of the electrical service panels. Additionally, there is an opportunity to reduce operating costs by upgrading the building's older fluorescent lighting to LED fixtures and potentially adding solar panels to the main building roof, which was replaced in 2019.
Hey, Mike.
That was number 8.
Oh, I skipped one?
Yeah,
You jumped ahead.
you're way ahead. Yeah, I just caught it. I'm
like,
sorry, I was
yeah.
starting to hear
I was like,
groans from Mr. Sprank and realizing we were on the wrong one. So we're on number 3. Comiskey Park.
I'll be.
We'll ask you to read the whole thing over again, though. We'll read it.
I always had this sense that I was way ahead of the mayor and city council. Just
I don't know if you needed to go there, Mike.
Sorry.
That is okay. You are forgiven. Thank you.
Parks and Recreation Director Matt Kalsevich is recommending City Council adopt attached resolution to approve the Comiskey Park Phase 2 redevelopment project and award the public improvement construction contract to Ports and Construction in the amount of $2,515,000, 25.5% under the engineer's estimate. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request mayor and city council approval.
Thank you, Mike. All right, any discussion? All right. This one's pretty straightforward. Seeing no discussion here, we've talked about Comiskey frequently, obviously. Yes. All right, motion here is to receive and file, adopt this resolution. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprague.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 4 is repeal of amendments to City Code Title II, Chapter 5, Housing Commission.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
I'm going to make motion A, but I'm referring to both the repeal and the adoption of the ordinance. I move to receive and file the communications and further move that the requirement that a proposed ordinance be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which is to be finally passed is suspended.
Second.
Got a motion by Jones and a second by Roussel. Mike, please.
You're coming to me on this.
Oh, I'm sorry, Krenna.
That's okay. City Clerk Adrian Breitfelder and I are recommending repeal of Ordinance 33-24, which was adopted on June 17th, 2024. Recently, it was discovered that our code codifiers hadn't incorporated some earlier amendments done to Title II, Chapter 5, when Ordinance 33-24 was updated. What this did was it resulted in the elimination of some required language within the code. So at this time, we're recommending a repeal of Ordinance 33-24 to undo that inadvertent deletion. We anticipate reviewing and updating the language later this year or early in 2026 after consulting with the new Housing and Community Development Director, a position that is obviously open and will hopefully be filled in the near future. And we respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Thank you very much, Krenna. Adrian, do I recall, did you send us an email today explaining a little bit more about this? Would you mind adding some of that just for?
Yeah, I can do that. So basically, where this started was Ordinance 5423 was adopted in December of 2023. And what that did was that added a section under special qualifications for the Housing Commission. And that special qualification stated that no property owner or landlord accepting housing choice vouchers may serve, and references specific sections why they're unable to serve. And so in 2024, a new ordinance was adopted, Ordinance 3324. That ordinance was part of a broader initiative to standardize some procedural language among all boards and commissions. So just some different verbiage was added to that regarding oaths of office, minutes, that were standard across all boards and commissions, but inadvertently were not included in the Housing Commission. At the time that ordinance was reviewed, our codifier had not incorporated the updates from Ordinance 3324 into the city code yet. Ordinances take effect upon publication in the Telegraph Herald, but they're incorporated into city code, or what's known as codified, only on a quarterly basis. So we do have a section on the city website within city code that does specify ordinances pending codification, but that was inadvertently not reviewed before the ordinance language was pulled in order to create the ordinance for 3324. So when 3324 was adopted in June of 2024, it did not include that special qualification section prohibiting landlords accepting housing choice vouchers from serving on the Housing Commission. So that essentially eliminated that language upon adoption of that.
And just to clarify, if we're picking, we're talking about picking apples or oranges, it's more important to have that special qualification in the code, and we can do the cleanup things that were done in 2024 at any time. It doesn't impact the function or operations of the commission. That really was procedural cleanup.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you both. Do we have questions or any further discussion on this? Okay. Motion here is to receive and file and waive the 3 readings. And Mr. Jones pointed out that it is on both actions, actually.
Well, there really is only one action.
It's one action, okay.
So when you repeal the 33-24, the 2023 version is what you go back to. So that just happens automatically.
Gotcha. All right.
I was okay till Adrienne clarified it in her email. But it was perfect.
Yeah. All right.
Theme of
So
the
we're,
night.
we're clear on the motion. Receive and file, waive the 3 readings on this. Okay, Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
I move final consideration and rescission of the ordinance.
Second.
Got a motion. Yeah. Motion by Jones and a second by Wethel.
Do we mind if I just insert repeal in there instead of rescission?
That's fine.
Thank you.
So the motion is receive and file, repeal the ordinance. We've got a second by Wethel?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Adrian, call the roll, please.
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 5 is proposed amendment to Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission ordinance regarding membership.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
I move to receive and file the communications and further move that the requirement that the proposed ordinance be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which is to be finally passed be suspended.
Second.
Motion by Jones, second by Wethel. Mike, please.
Thank you. Arts and Cultural Affairs Manager Bonnie Sperling is recommending City Council approval of the proposed amendment to the ordinance governing the city's Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission. The amendment, as prepared by the City Attorney's Office and approved by the Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission, seeks to address the current commissioner's special qualifications. There is no budget impact associated with the approval of this amendment. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Thank you, Mike. Why was this special consideration in place in the first place? Do we have any historical context on that? I was just curious if anybody knows.
I'm not sure that we know.
Because when we'd appoint members, I always found it a little bit strange that we had this specific need, but I also could understand it. I mean, there are some specific places that are within entertainment districts or arts and culture districts that I think it makes sense, but it always is very limiting, I think. So I like this idea, and I think it makes sense to move more in this direction, but I was just kind of curious if any, Jill, you don't really know either? Okay, it's fine. Yep. Well, then it seems like an even better idea to go ahead and go in a different direction. Okay. All right. Well, motion here is to receive and file and waive the 3 readings. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
I move final consideration and passage of the ordinance.
Seconded by Wethel.
Got a motion by Jones, second by Wethel. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 6 is amending tax increment ordinance 825 for the Dubuque Industrial Center Economic Development District as amended by version 2025.4 of the amended and restated plan.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
I move to receive and file the communications and further move that the requirement that the proposed ordinance be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended.
Second.
Got a motion by Jones and a second by Farber. Mike, please.
Thank you. Economic Development Director Jill Connors is recommending City Council adopt an ordinance amending the most recent ordinance 825 for the Dubuque Industrial Center Economic Development District. The district's boundaries were amended by version 2025.4 of the amended and restated urban renewal plan. The proposed ordinance was reviewed by the City Attorney's Office and is attached to this memo. The proposed amending ordinance would expand the district to include the property to be designated as Subarea X by version 2025.4 of the amended and restated urban renewal plan in the TIF ordinance area of the amended and restated urban renewal area. The primary goal of version 2025.4 of the amended and restated plan is to expand the district by creating a new Subarea X. The expansion of the district is necessary to accommodate the issuance of urban renewal tax rebates under a development agreement with SJR Properties, LLC, and Universal Tank and Fabrication Incorporated. The plan also updates the public purpose activities to include SGR Properties, LLC. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussion? These usually come in before us when we have like a public hearing that is happening this one is just kind of on its own, but it's something that we are, where's the reason this is coming before us tonight, I guess is my question. Thanks, Jill.
Yes, thank you. Jill Connors, Economic Development Director. Typically, we bring to you a modification of a plan, and then that same evening, the modification of the ordinance. That had just been an oversight. So the plan was adjusted several meetings ago, and here's the ordinance that goes with the most recent version
Gotcha.
of the plan.
Okay, all right. So it's still in order that it needs to be, it just
Right.
is coming at a different time than it usually does.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, well, motion here is to receive and file and waive the 3 readings. So Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
I move final consideration and passage of the ordinance.
Second.
Got a motion by Jones, second by Farber. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 7 is Fire Department 2025 to 2030 Strategic Plan.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
move to receive and file and adopt.
Second by Wethel.
Thank you, Miss. We got a motion by Jones, second by Wethel. Do we need to move to adopt this? Is that something we need to do necessarily, or is it just more of a receive and file item?
Right. What does it say on the agenda?
It just says receive and file here, but I was just curious if the adoption makes a difference in that.
Didn't have that portion open when I made the motion, so I'll just stop at receive and file.
Okay, so the motion is now receive and file. Wethel will second that as well. Okay, thank you very much. Chief, am I coming right to you, or Mike?
I think really the chief's just here to answer any questions
Gotcha.
about the plan, unless you had something you wanted to present.
Okay. Yeah, and we already kind of had, no, you can stay there. I mean, we have a question for you. You never know. It's better than the back of the room, so. Yeah, do we have any questions or discussion further than what we did earlier? We kind of, if you're watching at home, you can rewind the tape and, see if, just gave my age away with rewind the tape there. See if there's anything else you want to discuss from the earlier discussion that we had, but we did mention a few things on the strategic plan in the earlier discussion. And in general, the theme was, I feel this plan is really well done and does put some very clear objectives in place after some very thorough analysis. So I think it gives the department a really good direction to be able to work with and has involved a lot of stakeholders in that discussion to be able to
Mr. Mayor.
do this. Yeah, Ms. Farber.
Just one comment about business planning and the fact that you listed all those threats. All of those threats can be turned into strengths. And so there's a plan behind the plan, which is, I think, relative here and important here, so that when your team looks, at this document on a whenever you do on a regular basis, that it's really an opportunity for the template, as we talked about, for that template that you can use to see where you can evolve from that threat to the strength, because that's really what it's all about. So thanks again, bravo on this one.
All right. Yeah, Ms. Wethel.
I felt like, in a way, this was telling me what I need to do to serve my community. Because what you laid out for us is the long-term plan of how to keep our community safe for decades to come. And that's my job. So thanks for doing it, because if you really dig into the objectives and the process, thanks for spelling it out for me, I guess.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr.
As long as we're commenting on that, I noticed that we have one line for strength, one line for weakness, one line for opportunities, and 3 pages of threats. So it looks like we're in dire straits, and we have a fantastic fire department. And so optically, I get why you emphasize those, but there's so many strengths that you could have, another 3 pages. Could have been too long, I guess. But I did mention that, so thank you for that. And this is a strategic plan that had a purpose in mind, and that's to let us know how do we make this the best department we can. So you want to elucidate on the threats. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks, Chief, for being here and for the rest of the team, too. All right, motion here is to receive and file. So Adrian, call the roll, please.
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 8 is Dubuque Historic Federal Building MEP Systems recommendation of selection of professional consultant services.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Sprank.
I motion that we receive and file and approve.
Second by Wethel.
Motion by Sprank, second by Wethel. Mike, you can read the memo that you were really looking forward to tonight.
I was very anxious for this one. City Engineer Gus Sahoyas is recommending City Council approval to select Shive Hattery as the consultant for the Historic Federal Building Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing Systems Assessment and New Systems Design, and authorize the city manager to negotiate a consultant agreement with Shive Hattery. Currently, several systems are nearing the end of their useful life, including the cooling tower, 2 air handlers, pneumatic control systems, boilers, and about 50% of the electrical service panels. Additionally, there is an opportunity to reduce operating costs by upgrading the building's older fluorescent lighting to LED fixtures, potentially adding solar panels to the main building roof, which was replaced in 2019. City is also interested in exploring the feasibility of renewable energy options such as PV, solar, geothermal, and building energy storage to enhance the building's sustainability. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request mayor and city council approval.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions here? Mr. Sprank.
Not really a question, just more of a comment. I know some folks have said to me, oh, why do we keep hiring consultants and all that? And we have to hire somebody to figure out, to look at our building from an outsider looking in perspective as to like, here's all the things that we need to do to fix. And clearly, the building needs a lot of work. And yes, it may be obvious to some folks that yes, it needs new cooling towers, air handlers, control system, boilers, and electrical service, but it takes a dedicated person to actually draw up plans and a consultant. So that's why we're hiring a consultant. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sprank. I think it was pointed out very well. Okay. Well, the motion here is to receive and file and approve. So Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 9 is Housing Creation Incentive Staff Recommendations, Updated Matrix.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel.
I move to receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second.
Got a motion by Roussel, second by Jones. Mike, please.
Thank you. Economic Development Director Jill Connors is recommending City Council approval of the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to implement the updated housing creation incentives to support additional unit creation in Dubuque. In light of the most recent housing study and current market trends and demands, Economic Development Director Jill Connors recommends one additional adjustment to the city's housing incentive packages. To date, the Downtown Housing Creation Grant Program has supported the development of multifamily rental units in existing historic buildings. To diversify the type of housing available in our downtown, walkable neighborhoods, Jill proposes expanding the program to include for-sale condominiums in multifamily buildings. Specifically, she recommends offering the existing $10,000 per unit grant for these for-sale units. No additional funding is required beyond already approved budgets. The incentives utilize tax increment generated by the developments themselves. These incentives do not increase taxes for other property owners. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request mayor and city council approval.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, Mr. Sprank, go
I
ahead.
actually have a question for Jill. If you had a property, I'm trying to imagine what project that's been brought to you in the past would have qualified for this now. That say like 3 years ago, somebody brought a property to you that wanted to do this but didn't qualify. Like, is there an example?
Maybe.
Okay.
Jill Connors, Economic Development Director. There's 2 things going on in this agenda item. One is the chart itself, and then the other is the recommendation to add for-sale condos in multifamily buildings to the mix. I think it's the second one that you're asking about. We have had conversations with building owners before. If you think about the millwork district and the fact that those are all rentals there, and one of the main reasons is that that had to be true to use the historic tax credit program. And there could be no even indication that they were going to be for sale units in the future if they wanted to qualify for those historic tax credits. Flash forward to today, some of those buildings, if they wanted to transform any empty spaces and they weren't going to use historic tax credits for that empty space and create housing in there, they would have an option to do that as for sale condos. And just knowing that that's a type of product we don't have a lot of, or maybe any of, we just want to make sure that we've got incentives that can address any of the housing types that come before us.
Gotcha. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. That answers my question. Mr. Resnick.
Just a quick question. Would when it's for sale condos or anything, would this be able to help someone prepare something and then rent it out as a verbo or some other kind of thing that we're actually, subsidizing somebody's business?
We have in our development agreements right now a stipulation that if they use these funds from the city, they have to be long-term leases, meaning more than 30 days.
Great.
For the term of the agreement. So if it's a 10-year agreement, then at least 10 years, they could not be used that way.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Jill, I have a technical question here about the actual, so the matrix is new, and that's part of the resolution, right, is that we're doing. But
yes.
But then the other question is the condo question. I don't see that specifically addressed anywhere on the matrix or within the resolution itself. Does it need to be? Is that what we're actually voting on here?
It doesn't need to be listed. The matrix is meant to be a tool for us to use with the developers.
Okay.
So in September 2022, when the council approved kind of beefing up our housing incentives in order to address the lack of housing at that time, the document that was available to share with developers quite honestly confused me from time to time. I really have to look at it and think, okay, which one of these applies to, just because it's not how my brain works, how the document was designed. So mine is more of a chart, my brain is. And so I attempted to put together a chart, worked with legal counsel, both internal and our bond counsel down in Des Moines at Allers, to make sure that we got everything correctly on there so that I can sit down with a developer and go, oh, okay, are you doing affordable or market rate? Are you doing downtown or not downtown? Are you doing multifamily? Are you doing a subdivision? And then you just find the right square on the chart, and then we all know where the starting point of the conversation is.
Gotcha.
Does that answer your question?
I think it does, yeah. So the resolution that we're actually voting on here is, first of all, the section 1, city manager is authorized to develop and offer housing development incentives set forth in the attached housing incentives matrix. So that's the main thing, is that we're now attaching a specific matrix to this by resolution. So that's what's happening there. Okay. And then is authorized, we're also giving the city manager the power to authorize amending those conditions and incentives set out within this, based on the matrix, based on staff recommendations. So is that a power that you had before, Mike, as a city manager? I mean, is this something that's new in that way, that as we come up with these incentives, you're able to change them?
I would suggest no, but that doesn't stop me from recommending to you on an individual project that you do it.
Yep.
And I can't remember, did that Novelty Ironworks, has that come to the council yet? Yeah, so there is one developer right now that's considering doing condos instead of apartments.
Mm-hmm.
So that wouldn't have precluded me from coming to you and recommending you do it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't unilaterally do it.
Right. And I guess maybe kind of this is more of a question for you. What are we specifically changing the most here by adopting this resolution? Because I'm actually a little bit unclear about that as I'm asking these questions and thinking through it.
My understanding is that the matrix has been kind of reformatted and parsed out a little bit more. So like Jill mentioned, when she sits down with people, it's very clear what they may or may not be eligible for from an incentive standpoint. So for example, one of the things that you'll see, as Jill mentioned, it talks about affordable or market rate. But one of the things that we cleaned up is it previously said downtown or not downtown. Well, technically, because the funding source is the greater downtown urban renewal area, we cleaned up that language so that it says greater downtown urban renewal area or outside the greater downtown urban renewal area. Because it was unclear, perhaps, what downtown might mean. So someone might not be within the boundaries of that greater downtown urban renewal area. And when they looked at the matrix previously, they might have thought they were or were not eligible for something. And now we can hand them the GIS map of the greater downtown urban renewal area and could explain, at this point in time, you are not eligible because you are outside that area or inside that area, depending on what they were looking at.
Okay. So that's helpful, but section 2 is still tripping me up on the actual resolution itself. Because it says, section 2, the city manager is authorized to amend the conditions and incentives set out in the housing creation incentives staff recommendations, updated matrix, as needed to fit projects as best possible and in a flexible manner. And while I appreciate that flexibility and the ability to be more nimble about things, it also, maybe I'm wrong here, maybe I'm reading it, but it feels like a fundamental shift from what we've been doing now, which is the city council is the body that actually provides the recommendations or is actually, we're the ones that decide what incentives are being offered. So I'm just curious if that's what if I'm reading it wrong or what I'm looking at.
Yeah, you know what, I think if you wouldn't mind if we brought it back to the next meeting and added some clarification here to what we're trying to accomplish, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, because I'd appreciate that actually, because I think it would be, because I know we're not like in a rush to get this done. I love the idea of it itself. I mean, I just want to point that out. The condo thing makes total sense to me. But but I want to make sure that because as I read through this more, I realized that it seems like more than what we're just the condos that we're talking about, and more than just adding a matrix and codifying that into our code. So I would actually appreciate if we could potentially entertain a motion to postpone this to the December 15th meeting and talk about it then, because I think it could be helpful to do that unless we've got other ideas.
So moved, unless you need it in another format. Can I just say?
I think it could be receive and file and schedule for the December 15th, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Got a motion by Roussel.
Second.
The second was Jones, so Mr. Jones, you would second that? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So any further clarification? Okay. And thank you, Jill, for being here to be able to talk about this. Okay. So the motion here is to receive and file this and actually discuss this again at the December 15th meeting. So Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Spring.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 10 is list of Iowa Economic Development Authority's 2025 redevelopment tax credit recipients from Dubuque.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel?
I move to receive and file.
Second by Wethel.
Got a motion by Roussel, second by Wethel. Mike, please.
Thank you. Economic Development Director Jill Connors is providing the list of successful applicants for the Iowa Economic Development Authority's 2025 redevelopment tax credit recipients for 2025. Each application required a letter of support from the city. All 5 applicants from Dubuque received an award from the program. There was $19,115,000 of tax credits available from the state of Iowa. There were 51 project applications submitted from across the state, and only 25 projects received an award. The 5 Dubuque projects received a total of $4,130,000 of the available tax credits. Those projects included the The Ioko Building at 100 East First Street was awarded $1 million in tax credits. The Ioko Building is one of 2 remaining historic buildings located within the South Port area. The proposed redevelopment of the building and property would be the first of its kind in this area and set an example of the quality impact the project can have for a community. The project will create a recreation and gathering place for the entire Dubuque area. It will also create a physical and visual connection to the Mississippi River, utilizing Dubuque's best and largest natural asset. The property has already been the subject of environmental testing and identified the presence of both asbestos and lead-based paint. Dubuque Fifth and Main project awarded $1.5 million. This property has served as a surface parking lot for the city of Dubuque for decades. The city of Dubuque and Grown Development entered the development agreement on March 17, 2025 for the creation of 8,000 square feet of first floor commercial space and at least 80 rental residential units at an investment of approximately $24 million on this site. Property is located immediately west of the future John and Alice Butler School of Osteopathic Medicine. Farley and Letcher Manufacturing at 801 Jackson Street awarded $1,250,000. After closing its millworking operations decades ago, this property evolved into a hodgepodge of storage, bakery, and law office space that currently sits abandoned. The city of Dubuque and Farley and Letcher entered into a development agreement on September 5th for the creation of 126 rental residential units at an investment of approximately $25 million on this site. Iowa Street Lofts at 1248 Iowa Street awarded $1 million. The Iowa Street Lofts project proposes to create 13 apartments in the mixed-use building immediately adjacent to City Hall. The City of Dubuque and 1248 Iowa Street entered into a development agreement on October 20th, 2025 for the creation of 13 new residential units and the restoration of the building facade at an estimated investment for approximately $2.7 million. And while I know I said $1 million there, I think the award was $300,000. I'd have to go back and check the list. Wilson House Apartments at 1243 Locust Street awarded $80,000. Wilson House has been vacant since 2018 and had over 200 showings before being sold. An asbestos survey was completed in 2024 with sampling and analysis showing evidence of asbestos being present in piping insulation and floor tile and mastic. The piping insulation and floor tile and mastic to be remediated for the property to be redeveloped. The City of Dubuque and Wilson House Apartments entered into a development agreement on May 20th, 2024 for the creation of 5 new residential units with an investment of approximately $1.5 million. The project intends to use historic tax credits.
Thank you, Mike. And I know this is just a receive and file item to be able to see this and celebrate it, and I appreciate you bringing this forward so we can see it in public light like this, because this is great news. I mean, these are great projects, and to have Dubuque receive 4 of these awards, I mean, 5 of these awards. It's like a Monty Python movie right there. Yeah, 5 of these awards is just really, it's fantastic. So really glad to see this here. All right, any further discussion, questions? All right, motion here is to receive and file. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprink.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 11 is updated workforce housing handout.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones?
move to receive and file.
Second.
Motion by Jones, second by Sprank. Mike, please.
Yeah, I don't actually have a presentation other than to mention that this is a handout that was created by our communications department trying to explain to people what we mean by workforce housing, and this will be mailed with our utility bills in the next utility billing cycle, so every property owner in town will get a copy. I really think it helps people appreciate, it will help people appreciate the importance of us, the mayor and city council supporting workforce housing, and the fact that while we call it workforce housing, one of the bolded statements in here, it says, if we hope our children and grandchildren plan to stay in Dubuque, they need a place to live. and this is that place to live.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I know we've seen this several times because, there's been some updates to this particular document, and I think the updates have improved it every single time. So I'm glad that you're putting this on the agenda tonight so we can see it. So much about, we've talked a lot about incentives tonight. We've talked about other things that have to do with housing, but a lot of this does involve community education about why we're talking about this so much. And I think the more we do that, the better. Because there's a reason for it. We're not just doing it. There's a definite reason, and we feel there's a real community need here. So I think it's great to be able to have something that'll help to educate a little more. All right. Motion here is to receive and file this as well. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 12 is ribbon cutting ceremony for Dubuque County 911 Emergency Communications Center video.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file and view the video.
Second?
Motion by Resnick, second by Farber. Eric, you can roll the video, please.
Welcome to our state-of-the-art facility. I want to thank everybody that made this possible, which that list goes on and on and on. Unbelievable how partnerships can work and things can come together that we can have such a great 911 center.
Dispatch are kind of the unsung heroes of public safety. They are our lifeblood. They are our lifeline. They do so much for us that doesn't get acknowledged.
Every call, every alarm, and every emergency begins with the calm, skilled voice of our dispatchers, the critical link that ensures that help arrives quickly and effectively. It's a proud moment for our community as we celebrate the opening of our new Emergency Communications Center, a true partnership between the city and the county, built upon collaboration and shared commitment to public safety. This new facility represents far more than an upgraded infrastructure. It reflects the essential connection between our dispatchers and our first responders that they support.
To my dispatchers, because of their dedication, compassion, and professionalism, this place is what it is. I am and will always be their loudest and proudest cheerleader, and Dubuque is sure lucky to have such a fantastic team. We're so proud to share this milestone with you today, and it's been a long time in the making.
This used to be literally in a closet in the law enforcement center. This is so fantastic to finally have this. This is a long time coming. Harley and the supervisors worked very closely with our city manager to get this done. City manager worked very closely with us as a city council with the partnerships that needed to happen to get this done, and Dubuque Initiative stepping up in the way they did here. Everybody's played a really important role.
Never ceases to amaze me the things that this community can do when we partner together with city and county and local government to make things happen. We look forward to seeing this communications center honorably serve the Dubuque area from now until long after we are gone. To our wonderful and dedicated communications center dispatchers, thank you for your patience and welcome to your new home.
All right, everybody. 1, 2.
Well, so much was said that night about this and how important it was. You got to see some of the greatest comments there. Appreciated hearing from everybody who does this work at this and seeing everybody who does this work. I was shocked at how many people showed up for this particular ribbon cutting. And what it spoke to me immediately was how many people have been touched by and worked for the 911 emergency services and what that has meant to them in their life and their career. And to have this, sometimes magic just happens and you get the right people in the right places and the partnerships occur and it just happens and comes together. And you do something that you've been trying to do for years and years and years. And that's what happened in this case. So many people got together to be able to make this happen. It's an incredible, incredible spot, a really great facility. And I think it was Sheriff Kennedy who said, that it'll be there long after we're all gone, doing this work. And I'm just so happy to see it. I know a lot of us are. So thanks for everybody involved.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
I got to thank Mike for driving this one for a long time, and Dubuque Initiatives, of course. And there are a lot of players that had a lot of work in it. But I tell you, more than anybody else, I think Harley Potoff made this happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I need to thank you. thank him and single him out for this one.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Mr. Jones. All right. Well, great video. So the motion here, receive and file, watch that video. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel. Farber. Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 13 is videos of Eagle Point Park projects.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file and watch the video.
Second.
Got a motion by Resnick and a second by Sprank. We can roll that video, Eric.
With the park now being closed, it's nice we're not impacting anybody. We can leave everything here, it doesn't hurt anything, and now's about the best time as any for us to work together and get it done. I'm with Public Works. We're up here at Eagle Point Park helping out the park department and tree crew, doing some sidewalk repair and some blacktop patching repair. Tree crew, they're removing the stumps, and then we're regrading and putting blacktop back in where it gets tore out. It works good with us because we're just in the transition between summer and fall. And then tree crew, we haven't had any storms or anything for a while, so they're caught up as well, where now it works really good. Well, some of the things that made a challenge, I guess, just, you have a bigger machine trying to dig underneath a bridge walk that's 12 foot 6 inches. So right there alone. Otherwise, the trees and stuff, it's hard to maneuver around, and you're trying not to tear up any more than you have to. A couple of these stumps that are in here, we have to come in, saw it, dig the blacktop around, then we have to dig it out, then they come remove the stump, and then we come back and regrade and then put the blacktop back in. We all have to coordinate together. The crew's great, we're well rounded. We can get a lot more done being we're all working together as one. Hope we get Eagle Point Park all wrapped up this week for the blacktop and concrete. Tree crew has a little more work to do up here than that with tree trimming and stump removal. We're doing priorities first. Your ride coming in here is a lot nicer now. It's gonna be a lot smoother. And then the sidewalks, we're taking care of the trip hazards, and so we're bringing it all back up to code. Next year it'll be good to go.
The main focus that should be kind of looked at is how do we preserve this great park that we have and sustain it as well. So an example of that would be preserve the larger or the more mature oak trees, but then also what can we do to regenerate some of those trees so people can enjoy them into the future. Forestry Division primarily focuses on overall tree care of trees that are on city property or between the sidewalk and street curb in the city right of ways. So what we were doing was some oak pruning, because there are a great quantity of oak trees up here at Eagle Point Park, and the best time to prune oaks is during the dormant season. There isn't a whole lot of insect activity out that could spread a fungus that ultimately could lead to mortality or death of a lot of the oak trees. So that's why we're trying to get that activity done between now and before the snow falls. Another portion of what we're doing is trying to clean up some storm damaged branches that were caught up in some trees. Today happened to particularly be an oak tree, so it worked out well to get it out during that time frame. Eagle Point Park specifically, there's a lot of tour buses and stuff that come up here, and they're a high clearance vehicle. So we try to raise the tree branches up so the tree itself isn't getting damaged more, and the vehicles aren't getting damaged as well. It also creates a little bit more of a opening so it doesn't feel so closed in. So it kind of opens up the whole visibility. Pruning is definitely a science, and then so is tree care. Wood is very heavy and can be very dangerous. So we try to analyze and set up a site based on the conditions that are in the area. We try to do the best that we can. Each tree is going to be different and each area is going to be different. There's obviously a very natural landscape here, and it's challenging. As everybody knows, Eagle Point Park is known for the view of the river, and there's a fence that prevents people from going over the bluff. Vegetation and trees start to grow in areas that we can't easily access. We'd like to get to removing them or prescribing some type of treatment for them. It's very difficult to get into those locations. Safety is probably the most important factor here. That is one of the work to come yet, as we're still trying to evaluate what the scale of the work that needs to be done and is there a company out there that could actually accomplish what we desire, or get into a bigger collective, working with other departments to see what everybody could bring to the table to try and get to the overall goal.
Mr. Resnick?
Well, Mr. Mayor, you mentioned magical just earlier, and I tell you what, you go up to Eagle Point Park, you get into the inside and you go down and around. My wife and I were up there about 20 times this year, and it's still just a wonderful place to see some beautiful trees, as they were talking about, and then the river. And I've seen a lot of the Marshallese community there as well. They enjoy that park especially. And of course, I see a lot of visitors along the river. So it's great to see, the new people ooh and ah about the view. And but there's a place in Eagle Point Park where you feel like you're all alone in this magical place. So it's great to see them advancing on this. It is already fantastic, and with the new work, it's going to be, I think, great for everyone. So I'm looking forward to that in the spring. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I love having videos like this to be able to educate people a little bit more too. I mean, me too, and figure out, why can't you cut some of these trees back a little bit more? Well, it's pretty hard to reach some of those trees, and you have to think about some of those things. So I do appreciate that. One quick thing I'll say before we go on, because I know we have a little more in a closed session here, but there's a new book by Michael Lewis out right now, and it's entitled Who is Government? I haven't read it yet, so I might be giving it something that it doesn't deserve, but I'm pretty sure I'm not, because Michael Lewis is a pretty well-known, pretty good author. But his whole point in the book is talking about the federal government and who the people in the federal government are. And he's talking not about the people who are elected and on TV all the time, but the people who do the work. Like, what does it mean to be government? And what I love about these videos in particular is right there, that's government. That's who your government is. It's the people doing the work on a day-to-day basis. And they're doing it smart. They're doing it by working really hard. They're doing it at the right time of year. They're trying to stay out of your way while they do it. They're trying to make your city beautiful. And I appreciate that we have so many dedicated people in the city that do that, but I appreciate even more that we get these opportunities to show everyone those people doing that work, because it's why I love living in this town. It's a great place because so many people are doing so many great things, and this is who it is. Well, thank you for that video. Motion here is to receive and file and watch that. Adrian, just call the roll, please.
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick. Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Next are council member reports.
All right, before I ask for any reports, I have a very important announcement to make. It's not often that a person that sits up here gets to celebrate their birthday on that day, but our city clerk, Adrian Breitfelder, is doing that just now. So today is actually Adrian's birthday. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody recognizes that, because we appreciate you, Adrian, and having you here every day. So thank you very much for the work that you do, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
I would offer for us to sing. I mean, we're surrounded by musicians, so I mean, if that's something that we want to do, we might as well just, pull it off.
Let's do it.
So,
Happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Adrian. Happy birthday to you. All right, so we're done with council member reports now.
What's that?
What other reports do we have for the day?
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
not real busy because of the holiday, but Tuesday the 18th, we had a DRA board meeting, followed by a Travel Dubuque Executive Board meeting, so a little bit of a busy day. Wednesday the 19th, we had a Dubuque Metropolitan Area Solid Waste Agency board meeting. Thursday the 20th, pretty exciting press conference at Field of Dreams about all the entertainment offerings coming, not to mention the return of Major League Baseball. Another notable event happened on the 20th. John Leipart was the custodian in this building for the city, and he passed away on that day. And that's a loss. He was always a friendly face and pretty helpful, and took on the management of this building when it needed a lot of managing. So we'll all miss John. Monday the 24th, they had a meeting with Wendy Scardino of Dubuque Forward, just to kind of talk about where does next councilman fit into the conversations that they're having. And that was a good meeting, and I think her being in that position is going to be good for everybody. So that's pretty much where I've been.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Jones. Mr. Sprank.
Oh, thank you. Yes, on the 18th, I phoned into my DRA meeting. On the 20th, I gave welcoming remarks at the Iowa Tourism Industry meeting, which was kind of fun to all the insiders of the tourism industry. On the 22nd, I helped at the MFC. They partnered with the NAACP for a turkey giveaway. The city manager was there as well. And then on the 24th, I got to stay up super late and welcome people in for the CPKC holiday train with Smash Mouth. So it was a fun night. So here we are.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Farber.
So I want to talk about the National League of Cities conference that was held the week before Thanksgiving. And I first off, and most importantly, want to give a shout out to Jill, who talked about and headed up the panel for the community engagement workshop, where she talked about public-private partnerships and also the collaboration between the county and the city on behalf of the Child Care Center at Bright Minds. So very well done, and it was very, I think, interactive in that presentation that you gave, where people were really interested and really encouraged by what Dubuque is doing for community engagement. So shout out to you for that. Thank you. And I was very honored to represent the city of Dubuque pretty much throughout the week. I started out with our final ITC, the Technology Committee meeting, where we finalized our resolutions for advocacy for the leg of City Board, which we did present. Following that meeting, I did a video on the ARPA funding for the data center, which will be, I think, incorporated into the League of Cities documentary for 5 years review of ARPA. And then in parallel to that, I did an interview on behalf of the data center, again, for ARPA funding. So that'll be a use case that is developed for the city of Dubuque. So there's a lot of proud moments there for that. And then the final day, I was actually honored to speak about our small but nimble data center at a data center workshop. But not only did I give an introductory presentation, but I also was the facilitator, if you will, for that panel that I was able to moderate. And it was not about Dubuque's data center per se, the small ones, it was about the mega centers and all of the challenges, the risks, the opportunities, and the threats, talking about tonight, that the mega centers present. And we had representations from some of the major cities that Amazon and Meta and Musk, if you will, are hosting conversations right now with these municipalities on the ordinances that they can and cannot have, if you will, going forward for the mega centers. It was an enormous crowd. People were actually standing room only and sitting on the floor for the moderated session. So you can just, it was just an indication that the hyperscalers are important, technology is important, and it was just really fun to be the moderator for that session. So again, a privilege and an honor to represent Dubuque for the League of Cities. And then on a special note, they have asked me to continue in a non-elected role to help on their new AI forum next year. So that will be virtual meetings and probably another toolkit. Who knows how that's going to evolve. But I was just very pleased that they thought to continue to think of Dubuque and all of the things that we have done, because we are really looked at as a model innovative center for all of the technology that we're doing and all of the smart AI applications that we have. And it's just been really a lot of fun to represent. So.
We really appreciate your service with NLC in all those ways, Ms. Farber. That's exciting to hear that you still get to serve even after you're no longer in an elected role. So that's great. Yeah. Well, thank you for representing Dubuque last week.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Any other reports? All right. Well, we do have a closed session, so I will entertain a motion, please.
I got one. I move that the City Council go into closed session in accordance with Chapter 21.5 of the Code of Iowa to discuss pending litigation and potential purchase or sale of real estate.
Second.
Got a motion by Jones, second by Roussel. For the record, the attorney that the City Council will consult with and the issues to be discussed in closed session is City Attorney Karenna Brummer. Adrian, call the roll, please.
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel. Farber.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We are in closed session.